Shout out to USARK and all USARK members. If you don't know what USARK is, don't be ashamed. Just go ahead and click the third link in the description below. See what USARK is all about, okay? You never know when legislations are going to hit your backyard, so that's why it's very important to consider becoming a USARK member today. These numbers really do matter, and they look at it for consideration when it comes to battling legislation. So first and foremost, thank you, Phil Goss. Thank you to anybody out there who partners up and volunteers with USARK organization. Thank you for anyone out there who's a USARK member. And if you can't become a USARK member today, please talk about it on your platforms. Let your neighbors know, let all your pet stores know what USARK is here for, and it's here to fight for our animal rights. Thank you to every USARK member and USARK supporter out there. Cheers.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world, episode 609. Welcome to Thursday night's Trap Talk with MJ. Very special Trap Talk episode in store. One and only Eugene Bessette and Vin Russo on the same Trap Talk episode. One of the reasons why that's special. Another big reason, of course, is why do you think? Yes, that's right. You guessed right. Dave Levison is back here co-hosting with me tonight. What is up?
I'm ready, buddy. I'm excited about this. Long time coming. It's been a while.
Get this. Okay, there's the chick. By the way, guys, you never know what you're going to hear background-wise with Dave being on the show.
Chicks? Oh, I'll make those chickens go away.
Is that a real thing? I'm confused. You had this? Oh, never mind. Let's not get into it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after.
I'm so excited, man. Listen, thanks for being here tonight, Dave. It's been a long time since you've been on a Thursday night. How you been, man? Listen, you've been killing it, been slaying the Friday show. You've had nothing but banger after banger, but let's catch up to people, man. How you doing?
Well, good, man. I think one more day and this move is over, which would be nice, so I could actually have some sanity. Not to be weird, I'm gonna start going to the gym on Monday. How does that sound?
I think it's necessary, especially people our age. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it couldn't hurt at this point, man. But no, it's been good. Doing good. I'm gonna go ultrasound some boas after this. Things are happening. I got babies on the ground. It's the best time of the year.
So the move is going smooth.
Not at all, but it's almost over.
Oh, geez. Okay.
There's just a lot of stuff.
You're definitely here for a solid reason. Basically, the two people that we are, bless you, whoever that was. Fucking Jesus Christ.
We're gonna have
never mind, dude. Vin Russo and Eugene Bessette. Okay, what do you know of these two, please?
Well, you know, I talk about Vin all the time. Yeah, he's always been one of my favorite breeders in the hobby. I've always loved the diversity in his collection. Very knowledgeable, and again, being a boa guy. And you know, I spoke to Eugene for the first time about a week ago, and great conversation. I've been wanting to talk to that guy for years. A lot of respect for his business, the functionality, the scale. I'm looking forward to learning a little more about him today. How about that?
Yeah, you know, and I don't really want to waste much time. You know, I want to say anyone who's hanging out on this really special Trap Talk episode, get the likes up right now and hit that subscribe button. I want to kind of roll into these things, roll into this episode. So without further ado, you ready to bring Eugene and Vin on or what?
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Appreciate everyone who's tapped in. Again, this is one special episode coming at you guys right now. Do what you got to do to get your mind right. Do what you got to do to stay hydrated. Episode 609 coming at you right now. Eugene Bessette and Vin Russo. Let's go. Cheers.
Good.
You ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man.
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes.
Exclusive. Oh.
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up We do it.
Episode 609. We're live with Eugene Bessette and Vin Russo. What's up, gentlemen?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
How you guys doing? I can't. You got me on there?
Yeah. You're on here, Eugene. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah. Does that sound all right? We
Yeah,
good?
you sound. Yep. Yeah, loud and clear, buddy.
Good. Well, good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for
going
having me on here again.
Yes, my pleasure. So rumor has it you know Vin Russo, huh, Eugene?
Yeah. Somebody one time was Graziani years ago, and I'll just slap Ben, and Graziani and Ben are the same age, and we were someplace eating or something like that. I forget. And Graziani said, we could have been your prom babies. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we're 18 years your junior. You could have got some old, cheerleader knocked up or something like that. And you could have had me and Ben. And I go, oh my God, no. And it's just because time is just clipping by so fast. And Graziani, if you don't know him, he's an incredibly, you don't talk to Graziani, you listen to Graziani because he's Italian. He speaks. And he speaks and he speaks, but I love him, and he's done a lot for the industry, and he's done a lot for everybody. But him and Ben, two of my special grow outs, are two of my special boys, and it's just amazing how fast time has gone by. And kudos to Dave. Dave, I really loved the conversation we had last week, and I owe you an apology. It's pathetic. I've seen you at so many shows around the country and everything else, and I've heard nothing but cool, great things about you, and I would hear you in conversations, and it was just. There's so many people in this business, and there's just not enough time. And I hung up the phone the other night, and I said, wow, this guy is really a blessing in the things that you're doing for folks out there without getting into it and for the industry. And, man, you deserve the Big Heart Award if there ever was going to be a Big Heart Award for just doing what's best for what we all love. So kudos to you, my brother. You're always going to be number one in my book. For what that is moving forward, and whenever you can get down this neck of the woods, I'd love to have you come by and visit the farm and everything else and get your perspective on stuff. But thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for your precious time, week 10 days ago. Totally rocked my world, Dave. You're everything that everybody says.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I wish I could talk to a girl and her feel the same way after just an hour also, but I will take that, buddy.
We'll talk later.
Yeah.
There's a woman out there for you, Dave. There's a woman out there for you.
She's in the other room. I was just talking about the other 22 years of my life.
Ben, how's it feel to be on a podcast on Trap Talk with Eugene?
It's great. I mean, I've known Eugene since 1987. So,
wow.
Yeah, you and your brother Paulie. I think I used to sell you Gaboon Vipers or Rhino Vipers or
that's how I met Eugene. My brother and I got 3 Gaboon Vipers from him: a pink one, a yellow one, and a normal one. Eugene was breeding them for color morphs back then.
we were crazy back in the day, Ben. We had I think I had 246 adult females in production. Whether I was hybridizing with rhinos or just making Gaboon Vipers, and they were just. I mean, it's a shame they're so venomous, but God, they're so gorgeous, Yeah. Oh, it was fun. And I think, were you guys working for Lombardo's back in that day?
Well, that was like early 90s. My brother and I worked for a guy named Lombardo who had a big fish wholesale company. And they sold reptiles too. And they hired my brother to do the reptile part. They hired me, believe it or not, as a contractor to build racks for all the fish tanks.
Wow.
So I was there for I wasn't there long, maybe 6 months, but all I did was build racks for all the fish in the fish department, fish tanks, and My brother and I would go there every day. It was in New Jersey, so it was like an hour away from where we live. And I remember Eugene would send them bags of Burmese pythons, normal Burmese pythons.
Oh my God, yeah. Then we got into the albinos, and I mean, we made a lot of berms, we made a lot of money, we sold a lot of snakes, and I'm glad that the industry is kind of bonsai'd. I mean, I love big snakes, as you know, and I love venomous, but man, like I said the last time I was on here, that stuff ain't going to sell at Petco or, you know, at a show, and it sucks. And MJ, I was just watching your intro, and all these names of people, and just really pops, man, and names of people I've never heard of. And I mean, I don't get out and about like I used to and stuff. That's just the season of my life. But one thing I wanted to edify before we get too deep into this, I watched your interview with Bob at his Southeast Reptile show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was blown away, and I was very, very pleased at how well you guys did the show. But the kudos to Bob. And I called him up. And, you know, I remember when I met Bob Vu about 15, 16 years ago, and I went to a show up in Atlanta, you know, and it was a Repticon show, and I went there and did one. And he came in on a Sunday afternoon about 4:45 wearing a tie and a little tie clip and white shirt, you know, and he was selling insurance, and he was running around with this young girl, and which eventually, you know, was married. She became his wife. And, man, he had snakes for brains. He was on fire. And, you know, one thing led to another, to another. But the quality of his show, I didn't even know if I could qualify to get into his show, because everybody had such kick-ass exhibits. Everything popped, the lights, the banners, the tablecloths, the whole plexiglass presentation. And I sat back, and I was just thinking of how we started, you know, back in the late 80s, and then 1990 when Wayne did his first show, and none of us knew what the hell we were doing. We were clueless. And on and on and on and stuff. And so it was really, really, you know, kudos to you guys for doing a great job with the video, and kudos for Bob for taking it one notch. And I like how he's pushing people to excel, you know, make a beautiful presentation. And that's what we need to do. We don't need to have a flea market mentality. Not that there isn't a place for a flea market, but there needs to be a show that exemplifies the quality of these animals, the passion for these animals, and to really, you know, accentuate the beauty, you know. And I think God's favorite pet's a snake, so I'm a little prejudiced, but, you know, and people are going to gyrate to that. I think the people that want to spend money are going to go to a quality show.
Yeah.
And I'm not, you know, there's a market for the other shows out there and everything else. I mean, Wayne's going to do what Wayne does, because Wayne is Wayne, and it's Wayne's world, you know, and I love him, and I've known him since, you know, 1974. But there's a place for what Bob is doing. And I think what Bob is doing with the Southeast show is the future. If there's going to be a sustainable future in reputable shows, where it's going to be real hard for our adversaries out there to really knock us and say, oh, it's a schlep, you know, it looks like crap. So Bob's got good taste. Bob's got a dream and a passion. He's willing to put his money where his mouth is. And, you know, I called him up and I edified him, and I wanted to edify you publicly, MJ, for the excellent job that you did. And, you know, we got to encourage everybody to get better. We got to encourage everybody to do the best that they can. And it takes time. I mean, you know, it's like I was telling somebody the other day, this is the 45th consecutive year of breeding ball pythons. And it just blew me away that I've been doing ball pythons for that long, and started doing them when they really weren't worth much. We were just doing them for research purposes. And Vin can attest to the fact, it seems like only yesterday when Vin called me up and he was in tears, he was crying. And I said, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he said, I got one. And I said, you got what? And you made your first blue-eyed Lucy. And,
wow.
You know, that was the first. And so it was like his firstborn child that could crawl, that didn't have feet, you know. And he was just,
guys, what year was that? I got to ask, what year was that, Vin?
2001.
Wow.
And I looked at that, and I can't remember. I couldn't afford to buy the damn things. Who bought your first Lucy's? You remember?
I know Tracy Barker bought the first hets.
I thought she bought the first blue-eyed Lucy's.
No. The first Lucy's I sold, I think the first one I sold was a guy who was, I don't remember his name, and if I did, he probably wouldn't want me to tell anybody who he was, but he was a very eccentric, very wealthy man that I met through another breeder, who was just a private guy who, you know, just kept
Mhm.
kept very expensive animals.
Mhm.
And
Well,
it was high end back then.
Oh yeah, it was. But you know, you played your hunch and you spent your time breeding and stuff. And I sit here, fellas, and I am blown away at how many multiple thousands of colors of ball pythons that have been sitting under our noses for millennium.
Yeah.
That stuff's been there. And you know, it's in the berms, it's in the retics, it's in everything. It's in rattlesnakes. I mean, there's a half a dozen geographic locations of southeast United States of eastern diamondback, and things are popping up. And the reason things are popping up, Ben, people are looking. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, they're looking, and especially with ball pythons. I mean, I'm glad that berms don't have that many flavors, because we go crazy, you know, with getting 80 snakes that you didn't really want. So in some ways, it's good that the balls have a workable clutch. I just think it's a blessing from God, man, that it's ball pythons, and I just don't see anything. I just don't see them going away. You know, somebody asked me, are people always going to want snakes? I said, hell yeah, they're always going to want snakes, and they'll buy what they can get. And so it's up to us to promote. It's up to us to express all of these creative genes that are there. Doesn't mean they're all scalable. Doesn't mean they're all going to sell. Some of them are dead end streets. And, you know, when you look at these shows, MJ, like what you were promoting, what Bob is doing, there's so many interesting people out there that, you know, it's a hobby industry of sorts. I don't know if people make any money or not, but they're having fun. They're having a great time, and they're getting other people excited. They're getting other people to care, you know, about something that comes from the wild and the whole process. So, you know, none of us had any idea back in the 70s when we were all knocking around and dealing with imports and primarily just working with zoos. And like Ben was talking about, a lot of fish importers were moving a lot of mammals and reptiles.
Yeah.
And I'm just humbled. I'm blown away, you know, and I haven't been to many shows since COVID, other than just going to, you know, the one down in Daytona because it's in my backyard. But even still, just seeing all the pictures and the videos of the other shows that are going on. And the NARBC shows are doing good, and the ones out in Pomona are doing good. I mean, I think what Bob's on to is just, you know, hopefully Bob will stay humble and hungry and pick his markets carefully and move the show around.
Yeah.
But I think he's on to something, MJ, and I think that's something that you guys really need to monitor closely and continue to work with him. I mean, I'm glad. I mean, I said something to Bob a couple of years ago about doing your own damn show because he was so frustrated.
Yeah.
And I told him a story years ago. There was Steve Osborne, myself, Don Hamper, Pete Call. I can't remember some of the other people, but there was about 8 or 9 of us that promoted our own show. And we did the shows up in the Philadelphia area, and we covered the cost. And so we was $25 to get in, but the cost of the admission was redeemable towards the purchase price of an animal. And, you know, the thing to do is to get rid of all the tire kickers and try to draw people in there that wanted to buy. And it really worked good. And then we did it for a couple, 3 years. Then we went out to California, and it crashed and burned when we got out to California. But, you know, I told Bob, I said, it worked, and we control the show. So if you had 8 or 9 vendors and you did your own show like a co-op and you covered the cost, everybody is in, and everybody made sure that it was hugely successful. But the biggest thing, because now there's so much overlap, and I was surprised at the low percentage of ball python people that he let in, but he had to make sure that the show was balanced. And I can understand why a lot of people were upset. But, you know, it's I respect what Bob Boo is doing, and I like what I see. I'm encouraged from a show point of view. And, you know, what I do is radically different than what everybody else is doing. And shows are exhausting. Shows are a lot of work. But people seem to be having fun. And, you know, Ben and I, we've talked about numbers over the years. And, you know, and the other thing, too, Ben, you know, Steve Tillis, Dr. Tillis, talking about animals. Is this animal scalable? In other words, from a production point of view. And I've always been pro-business, pro-farming, and I like numbers. You know, people say, you know, how do you manage all these animals? And I said, it's a lot easier to manage 10,000 snakes than it is to manage 100. And they just look at me and think I'm crazy. And it's like, I mean, it's all about your database. It's all about your systems. It's the analytics. It's everything going into what you're putting together. And it's a beautiful thing when it all comes together. And it does. It has to, you know. And so it mandates itself. It's not for everybody because it's a commitment. It's a lot of work. But boy, when you get it up and running, you know, it's tough. It really is.
Hey Eugene, I got a question about shows. Well, for you and Vin, you know, you're talking about like you know, Bob Vu raising the bars in different sections of throwing a show, and I feel like, David, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, one of the vibes I got at the show I went of his recently, like the competitiveness, like you couldn't feel the tension in the air. You know what I mean? Like you go to Tinley and like other big shows, and you're hearing from other breeders talking shit about the other breeder about a couple booths down, and then it's like going around circular. I didn't feel any of that at Bob's show, but I know that's like a thing though. Like, you know, and even at Daytona's, I'm sure it got cutthroat. I'm wondering how competition was back in your prime, being at shows, Eugene, and then Vin, if you could kind of talk about the competitiveness, even though you're kind of your own fucking realm in a Tinley setting because you're boas, but you might correct me if I'm wrong. Is the competitiveness pretty like something that is almost known at certain shows sometimes when you're there?
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, you got to keep in mind that when Eugene and I first started doing this, there wasn't a lot of us doing it. So, you know, for example, Eugene was the first guy I knew that bred snakes commercially. There was nobody else really back then doing it that I knew, at least. So when I went to that first Orlando show, Wayne's show was in Orlando. That was 90, I think, 1990.
Yes.
The only show prior to that I went to was one in Pennsylvania. Leonard Knapp had one in Pennsylvania, in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. And, you know, there was a camaraderie between the breeders because there wasn't a lot of us. You know, that's how I met all of the people that were known in this industry. I met Brian Sharp at that show. I met Pete Call at that show, meaning the Pennsylvania Pottstown show. So we were we competitive? Yeah, we were. Were we vying for the same money? We probably were, but we were respectful of each other because there wasn't a lot of us. I think the difference between then and now is that there's an amateuristic aspect to our industry. There's a lot of guys that just got into this who don't even know who me and Eugene are. They don't even know who Pete Call is. They don't even know who Brian Sharp is. They don't even know who Don Hamper is. They don't know any of these guys that were in this from the beginning. So they just know what they see on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, which are all great things because they're tools that people use to sell their animals. I use it too.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is there's so many people in it now. They have no idea of how this all started. They have none. They don't even know what happened. They can't even fathom it, you know? So I think the reason why the show you're talking about with Bob Vu is a good idea is because there's more of a professionalism to it. There's not a lot of amateuristic goings on. So that's the difference. That's what I see in the shows today. You know, I see guys that I never heard of just starting out with a giant display with neon lights and, you know, 5 tables, and they're all selling the same things though, you know? So I don't know. What do you think, Eugene?
I want to hear what David has to say. I'm sorry, David. I didn't see you grab your mic.
Oh no, that usually I raise my hand. This mic's a lot easier, but
Yeah.
no. So first off, when you're talking about the chemistry at Bob's show, you know, I believe the way it was set up is it was his Patreon members that had first dibs on tables. So these are a group of guys that have been together for years, talking to each other, doing business together, helping each other. So when you talk about the lack of competitiveness or not like that feeling in the air, I think it's because he had a lot of buddies that have been talking to each other, again, in his Patreon for the last few years, and that made it better. And then other than that, the breeders that come in, I mean, I think there's a lot of really great breeders in the Southeast, and there's people that travel from further away. But, I mean, I walked the building, and, you know, Bob went out of his way to pick the right people. And it's not like there's not more right people out there. But for the beginning part of the show, until he possibly expands in the future, he had the proper amount of people there. Because, you know, one thing, too, you got to keep in mind with the new show, if you bring in too many vendors and you don't have enough money coming through the door, enough people coming through the door, you know, they might judge the show wrongly. But if you organically grow it up as it gets bigger, as it should get bigger, it's better off. So honestly, I think it got managed properly by Bob. Like you said, he's a very smart guy. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, one thing I'll give to Bob Vu, He understands the importance, David, of relationship. And he's gone to enough shows. He's been crapped on by enough promoters. You know, and he's been caught up in the consequences of the verbiage between promoters and other vendors and everything else. And Bob's got good people skills, and he attracts a certain regime of folks who like that. Leadership is one word: influence. You could be at the back of a line of 2,000 people, but if you're a person of influence, you could determine where that line is going to go. And that's what Bob is really good at. He's a person of influence. Is he right all the time? Hell no. Does he screw up? All the time. But he's a person of influence because everybody knows, at least this is my impression watching him grow in the last 15, 16 years, is that, you know, he is screwed up. He screwed up with me more than once, and I just chewed his ass out several times. I don't let everybody come down here and go shopping, but, you know, he learned that, and he paid the respect, and I worked with him and everything else, and he's just flying high, and he's doing good. So he's been humbled, and he's hungry, and he's learning, and he listens to his customer base. I mean, he built a huge insurance business by listening, you know, not hearing. You know, hearing is physical, listening is spiritual. So it's a reflection of Bob Boo's heart. And his wife, Mary, is behind him 100%. You know, she was a lot like my wife was. My wife, Cindy, you know, was my lioness. She empowered me to go do the things that I need to do. And Ben knew her, you know, intimately and everything else. And so Bob has that with Mary, and I see that. And I'm excited for the new person that's getting their first ball python, that there's going to be an avenue there's going to be a river that person can put his boat in. Now, he's going to have to pay for it. He's going to have to work hard, and he's not guaranteed of any success. But that is the essence of life. And so the grumblers and everything else, you know, they can go home and suck their thumbs and everything else. And like I said, I don't know that if I could get into Bob's show based on the video I saw that him and MJ were walking around. And that convention hall was kick ass. I mean, the floors were polished. Everything looked smart. And I go,
Nice.
Damn, dude, I want to go to a show like that. A show like that makes you pull out your wallet, makes you run the numbers off your credit card, makes you want to be part of the party.
Yeah.
So,
And they had vendors spending money with vendors too, which was like, that was another thing happening at Bob's show. Is like the ones that weren't making sales off the audience or the foot traffic there, that next day on Sunday, whatever vendor did make money went to another vendor, spent some coin with them. And, you know, it just went around full circle. I felt like everyone got a piece of the pie that weekend, and it was cool to see, you know. And I saw people spend some big bucks personally, and I haven't seen that since I think 2020 freaking Tinley, since I saw people pull cash out of their.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I think a lot of people get enamored, you know, with shows and money, and they get distracted. And money is just paper. Money is anything that pays a bill, and money doesn't impress me. And I can remember back in the 80s, especially in the 90s, when we were really cranking out. We'd been working hard for Condros, and so we finally, when Trooper and I started going to shows, and you know, we'd go into Wayne's show down there in Orlando and eventually Daytona. I mean, I put a hell of a display up there, and I put stuff that, you know, that nobody's ever seen. And my attitude was, you know, if you don't, I mean, people would give me a hard time. And so what gives you the right to charge that much money? I said, well, you got one that looks like that? And they said, no, then shut up and go home, get out of here. You know, I mean, that was my attitude. If you don't have what I got, don't question my valuation of that. And, you know, we did a lot of bold things. And I used to tell people, you know, what was that? I used to say, oh, buy the best, forget the rest. So was I cocky and arrogant? No, I was confident, and I would put my animals up against anybody else's because I was willing to work harder. And I think that's one of the things that Ben and I in our early relationship a long time ago, because Ben understands and respects what it is to bust ass and to work, and you work and you work and you work, and all of a sudden one day finally, you know, you get it, and you're willing to fail more than anybody else. And that's the thing that, you know, going around and encouraging other vendors and other customers to not quit, you know. It's like I told you the story with Kevin Koff. The secret to green tree pythons is don't quit. Just keep at it. Yeah. Ben Russo is my main man to go to for boas. Boas, you know, in Florida are hard to do because it's so doggone hot down here. We have some success with some boas, but not all the species like he had. And I had just about everything that Ben had, but it got to a point in time from a business point of view, I quit doing shows. I got tired of doing shows. It was exhausting. I wanted to be able to make money in my absence. And so that's why we, you know, 2010, MJ, we quit doing shows because I went in the direction of volume. And that was difficult. I had to say no. I mean, I got rid of a lot of projects because they weren't scalable. They weren't making us money. And it's not that I don't love all those species, but I wanted to pay the bills, raise my kids, and, you know, promote the industry and fight like hell for our rights down here in Florida. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm blown away and very encouraged with what I see. Does everybody have to do it like Bob? No, hell no. There's a market. I mean, there's a market for the Repticon shows. There's a market for the NARBC shows. There's a market for what Wayne does. They're all great people, and I love them all, but they all serve their chicken a different way.
Yeah.
And yet people line up and they eat and they have a good time, and they have fun. And so bottom line is Wayne's been surviving for 30 plus years. The other shows are doing good. So they satisfy and serve a need, MJ, of certain people that want that kind of a show.
But
and I think Bob
Mhm.
is bringing a new level of life
Yeah.
to the reptile shows. And it's not just ball pythons. Yeah, he's a ball python guy, but there's other species of reptiles, you know, and ball python people need to chill out and realize you're not the only species on the floor.
Facts.
But,
yeah.
you know,
And I was gonna say though, Gene, you know, it's been a long time since I went to a reptile show and didn't find something that was making me shake my head. Like, why is that on the table? You know what I mean? I feel like even though a lot of reptile shows serve their purpose, why not do better if you can? And I feel like Bob's show is going to put a lot of pressure on these other people who throw shows who are just kind of getting away with it. Because at the end of the day, like, this whole hobby could look better if it could, you know? And so I think Bob's going to be raising the bar when it comes to this, you know, not intentionally, but just because he wants better. That's Bob. Bob's, I mean, he like you said, 15 years ago, he had a vision, you know, and it's.
Yeah. I remember he came in, like I said, about 4:45, and it was a horrible show. It was cold and raining. I didn't even make enough money, you know, to cover the expenses. And Steve Tillis and I did the show. We had fun, but Bob showed up at the last minute, and he bought, you know, and everything else like that. And it was interesting, and it was cool. And as much as I enjoyed the sale, where I really benefited, MJ, is I made a friend with Bob and Mary. In other words, they became part of my extended family. And with Bob's testimony and his history with his parents in Vietnam and a whole bunch of other stuff, and I'm not going to get into. In fact, Bob has more than once offered to take me back to Vietnam for closure, just for me to deal with my wounds and everything else.
Wow.
And I don't know that I may go. I mean, you know, my life has changed radically, as y'all know. But Bob said, yeah, you know, and take me back to Da Nang and take me back to Phuket and Quang Tri and a bunch of other places like that. And he said, Eugene, you won't believe it, but that's 50 damn years ago. And so I didn't ask him to. He just, out of the goodness of his heart, because he knows what I'm struggling with because of what his parents went through. So he has an awesome heart. He's very, very special, special place in my heart. But I mean, I won't hesitate to call him up, chew his ass out if I think it needs chewing out, because I love him and I care about it, you know. So I'm encouraged, MJ. I mean, hopefully others will see what's going on. I mean, there's no reason to do anything half-assed, right, Ben?
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, Vin, you've been carrying the bar for a minute now, as far as like, and not only coming out with a book on how to breed boas, but just everything else. I don't know, like, you're still to this day, you're one of my favorite tables to visit at a Tinley. But like, you know, what is it about you and the expectations you like to set? Like, do you pay attention to it that closely, or is it just coming natural? Like,
well, I've always been very aware of staying on top of things and being very disciplined. I used to use that word a lot with Eugene a long time ago. I remember Eugene coming to visit me once, and he saw my bonsai tree collection. And I remember him sitting on a stump, looking forward at the trees and just shaking his head saying, the discipline, you know? And I treat the reptiles the same exact way. To me, it's every day, get up the same time, get my feet on the floor to get to work and see what's going on with the animals and making sure everything's taken care of and fed and watered and nothing's wallowing in piss and shit, and it's just discipline. And I've always been that way ever since I'm a child. So it's just you're either born with that ability or not. You can learn it. You can learn to be disciplined, but it's harder to learn unless you have it in you already. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we did dinner at this last Tinley, and I was kind of asking a little bit about your work schedule, when you started, so on and so forth. And honestly, I've had a very unpredictable work schedule, I feel, for years. And, you know, adding shows last minute sometimes when I need to, so on and so forth. So, you know, even talking to MJ beforehand, you know, structurally starting Monday, I hate to say it like a New Year's resolution, but like, you know, I want to try to create more of that 9 to 5, or maybe that 9 to noon, 9 to 2, whatever it happens to be.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah, touching every animal every day if I need to, like, you know, really being able to put the time in. So, you know, that conversation, because, you know, the nice thing about being in this hobby, especially when you are self-employed, you could be a little willy-nilly, and some of us can be that way when the bills are paid, but to actually be successful, especially when you talk about scaling things up or working with difficult species, you can't be willy-nilly. You can't, like, you got to be able to commit.
It's a lot of work. And I learned that part of it from just being in business for myself, basically my whole life. So it was like, if I'm not up working and earning my living to pay my bills every day, I never really had a 9 to 5 job. Even when I was in mortgage banking, I worked for myself. I had to bring in my own business, so to speak. Even when I was a contractor, I worked for myself. So I just took that aspect of my life and moved it into reptiles. And yeah, I treat every day the same. And if I don't, I don't feel right. You know, I feel like I'm wasting time. I also learned from a real estate broker that I knew many years ago that I did business with when I was in banking. I remember him saying to me, he would say to his realtors too, because in real estate, you sell houses or you sell mortgages and you get commissions, and some of those commissions are pretty big.
Yeah.
So for example, the guys that are selling houses, they can make, well, back then they were making $2, $3, $4, $5 grand a house. Now probably a lot more. Houses prices a lot higher, but the commissions are a little lower. But what I'm getting at is that real estate broker used to say to me, all right, Vin, you had a great month, because he knew how many loans I had closed, because a lot of them came from his real estate office. He'd say, but now you can't take a break. You got to keep going as if that didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know? And he was so right. I mean, I learned that when I was in my 20s. So I treat this business the same exact way, you know, that I've got to put as much as I can into it, put as much time into it. But, you know, I treat it as a job. I have to cut myself off at certain times at night, because then I'll stay there all day.
Yeah.
So I've learned to do that. And I've also, you know, think about it. This business, you know, Dave will get this too. It's not, I'm not a rich guy from this business. I've made enough money to have a comfortable living, and I got to see my kids often. And if they had a school play, I can go to their school play. If they wanted to go on vacations, we could go. So, but what I'm getting at is, it's a good business to have for yourself, to be your own boss. But if you're not your own boss and you don't put the 9 to 5 into it, you're not going to make the money.
Yeah.
You know?
You're gonna be hurting. Yeah,
I wish people out there, MJ, would, and I've said this to Bob, you know, quit calling it a hobby, call it an industry. Because if you treat your hobby like a hobby, you're going to go bankrupt. But if you treat your hobby, and everybody gets into it in the beginning, it's a hobby business, hobby interest, backyard breeder. I mean, I'm a backyard breeder. I just got a big ass backyard.
Yeah.
And, you know, treat it like a business. Run your hobby to be profitable.
Yeah,
And,
but Gene, let's be honest. Not everyone's built to have their own business. Not everyone could grasp that information. Even if they're successful at breeding, they don't know what to do with this money sometimes. And it's just nature. Like, it sucks. I mean, luckily at my wife, you know what I mean? I don't know how I would be, to be honest, but I'm just like, it took a lot of maturity for me to be in this for at least 5 years to whole see like how like every dollar count matters. And if I do want to do this full time, I need to make this an LLC and get insurance for my business and et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of those dots didn't cross until I got my shit together and I stopped, you know, being a jackass and effing off my life in a sense, you know. But even, you know, like, but I'm just saying, guys, even then, like I've even met people who've been in this reptile industry. I like to say hobby is an industry, but either way, and they're just not good at business. And what's crazy is you didn't have to have people skills at one point to be successful in the reptile industry, but now you do. If you don't have people skills now, good luck. It's not going to work. And so that's why I see a lot of people not grasping that end of the business side of things and evolving and such, you know, like times are changing, you know?
Well, go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
Eugene was the one who convinced me to do this full time as a business. And, you know, he kept saying to me back in, you know, 2001, he's like, Vin, you do this for real now. And this is your wake up call, and you should be in a warehouse somewhere. You should be, you know, you shouldn't have it in your house. And what I did was one summer, I forgot what year it was. No, one winter, my wife and I went down to Florida, and I figured, all right, I'm going to visit everybody I know that does this for a living. So I went and visited Eugene. I went and visited Tony Nicolai, because I was getting some Amazon basins from him. Nice. A guy named Kevin Barnett, who was a boa breeder. Who else did I see? I saw a couple other guys. On the way back, I visited Pete Call, but I had seen him many times before that. So I did a drive. I drove all the way to Florida and back and visited as many reptile guys that I knew that were doing it for a living or doing it seriously. And I took a little bit of everything that those guys did, and I figured, all right, this will give me an idea on how to run my own reptile warehouse, so to speak. So, but that was like my, you know, my schooling, so to speak. It was go check it out and see how they're doing it. And that's how I started doing it full time.
You were saying, we were talking earlier about people breeding. The guy that I remember being the first breeder was a guy named Dick Gergen.
Oh yeah, Buffalo. He was in New York. Yeah,
he was up in Buffalo, and I went to. He never let anybody into his place. He could sell you $100,000 worth of animals. You'd have to meet him at the parking lot at McDonald's. No, I'm serious. This is no BS. He got screwed up in Vietnam. He took a mortar to the head, and it really messed up his head and lost part of his arm and shoulder. And you know, he's a disabled vet. And this one-armed guy was an incredible breeder, very disciplined. Yeah, he had tortoises in his basement, you know, and he would take them outside. But anyways, I got to go visit Dick in '82. I was visiting Tracy Miller for a couple, 3 days. She was working at the Buffalo Zoo. And we went to visit Dick Gergen, and then we went to Canada to visit some other Canadian breeders. But Dick's place just blew my mind. Now, this was '82, you know, and I was still living in Gainesville, and I had my little snake house, and I was looking to buy land. And when I saw Dick's place, and I said, my God, I'll have this same craziness in Florida. And I realized I need to go buy dirt, because I was fast outgrowing my first snake house that I built in '77. But Dick was a blazer, and Dick would come and do Wayne's show and everything like that. And he had so much stuff that was off the hook. And so he helped me, and then, you know, I remember when you and your wife came traveling through and stuff, and it was crazy. And I can remember when Mark Bell and his wife would come down and visit me in Gainesville when I had my first little snake house when they were living up there in Detroit. And Kim was nursing their daughter, and her daughter, I don't know, she's got grandbabies, and her daughter's in her 30s. And I can remember when Jamie or Jody was a little pinky, and Mark would just come and hang out. Next thing I know, he's buying warehouses. He's built a building in his backyard. His basement exploded. I mean, everybody went crazy, and eventually the rest is history. You know, he moved to Florida. But I've seen so many things like this, and not everybody gets the same vision. I mean, you know, Brian Barczyk and him were neighbors. So they all kind of grew up, him and Lori, and everybody grew up around one another up there in that neck of the woods. And everybody did different things, but they did what they felt was on their heart. And so there's no right way or wrong way. There's just what's on your heart. And going back to some of the business models, I just want to share one thing, MJ, to encourage you. So I think it was 2011. I did Wayne's show in 10, and I quit doing it. 2011, I'm at the show, and I'm hanging out, and this guy named Brock Warner, had these bananas, and this was before they knew
Brock Wagner.
Brock Wagner, yeah. This is before they knew they were mail makers. So his table was right next to PetSmart's table, which was right next to Rodents on the Road. And I'm just hanging out and everything like that, and I'm talking to them and having a great conversation. They were $50,000 a piece, and I would watch people come up there and drop, 5 stacks of $10,000 in $100 bills like poker chips, to buy one snake. And he probably did $500,000 for 10 o'clock. And he looked at me and he said, Eugene, why aren't you getting in? Why aren't you buying one of these things? And I said, Brock, let me tell you something. I said, if I don't have $50,000, but if I had $50,000 to buy a male, I still wouldn't buy it. But what I would do is I would take that $50,000 and I would invest it in cages or buildings or equipment or some sort of long-term capital investment, because I've seen so many of these prices start off sky high and come, crashing down. But I said, I'm happy for you. And he did good. And I remember Will Banks buying animals and everybody was buying them and he was the king. The next year they found out they were mail makers. So they went from 50 to 25. The year after that, they dropped down to 12.5. 3 years later, I think I bought a 50 lot of bananas for $1,200 a piece.
Oh my God.
And so in 4 years, so I took that 50K and I put it into buying freedom breeder cages. And now we sell bananas wholesale $70 to $100. You know what I'm saying? Because I said that $50,000 snake is going to make a good-looking $100 snake. Same thing with Vin in his blue-eyed Lucy's and everything else. I said, Ben, I got to make a ton of these things because I'll sell the hell out of them at $200 a piece. Of course, the market being what it is, it's come down a little bit. But in other words, I have invested tens of thousands of dollars in key snakes because I saw it could make a good-looking $100 snake that the masses had to have. And I can tell you today, right now, our business primarily is snakes that are orange, snakes that are white, and fruit. That's my three-legged stool. So we produce almost 10,000 ball pythons a year. The vast majority of them are snakes that have orange eyes, that are orange and white, all flavors. And I don't know, Ben, how many flavors of white snakes are there? 23 or 24 or 5 different ways to make a white snake. Some whiter than others. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then bananas. I mean, my God, you can make more damn bananas than you can make Fruit Loops, from Kellogg's. Yeah. And the public gyrates to that. Give me something white. Give me something orange. Okay, I'll take a banana. Yeah. And because how can you say no to a banana? They're the cutest, sexiest, sweetest looking thing.
That's what pulled me in. Yep, that's what pulled me in.
So we just like we reeled, what's his face? Trooper and I reeled in Greg Maxwell. Somebody put a triple hook in your mouth and reeled you and your wallet all the way from the bank to their bank. So you're in deep trouble. You might want to have your kid just hit you harder with that sippy cup. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, but Dave, Dave, you've been around long enough to see this yourself. People go all in on a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 individual ball python. But what's always been your outlook on that, Dave? Like, let's say you had endless amount of money, kind of going back to the banana peak days. Did you ever feel like you were that individual to buy that expensive snake back then if you would have? Or what's your mentality when it comes to that, Dave?
My biggest baller moment I ever had was buying a $12,000 boa from Jeff Ronnie with a partner in Buffalo when I was delivering pizzas. And inevitably, I ended up never making a single baby from that animal. So my biggest investment was actually one of my biggest losses I ever had in the hobby. Not slow and steady wins the race, but, even when I talk to people today, when you look at the Kluber market, the Kluber market's steady. You can look at that animal, it's dependable. You know what it's going to put out every year. And if anything, a lot of these Kluber prices have actually gone up over the last 5 years, that if you had been sitting on Hondurans and everything else for a while, you're probably making more money off them today than yesterday. So, with the balance in the collection for me personally, where I love a high-end sale, and most of my high-end sales I think now are in boa constrictors, I kind of look at other species I work with of, what's this output going to be, because it's the justification of still having certain things, and certain things I have around just because I know they keep the lights on. And we always talk about that kind of stuff. But don't get me wrong, I love hearing about guys dropping that kind of money. And I remember being by Brock Wagner's table back in the day, and I think it was before he was willing to sell a male. And I remember hearing offers he was given on those animals he was rejecting. And then again, fast forward, I remember looking at Dynasty Reptiles list about 7-8 years ago, and I don't think I've ever seen so many bananas on a wholesale list in my entire life, including females that were hard to come by at that point. So honestly, I'm a little bit of a wuss when it comes to investing. I always say for like the guys that really do the ball python game in that high end way, I feel like those guys are all guys that do stock market and gamble. They kind of have that edge. I'm not a gambler, so I've not taken as many big risks as a lot of other people.
I'm like Eugene. I'm not a gambler either, but I can breed snakes, and so can Eugene. But we've been doing this long enough to know that, don't be the first guy, be the third or fourth guy and make a couple hundred of them,
A couple thousand.
Yeah, a couple thousand.
There's a big difference, Dave. I mean, I mean, Bob was promoting the show and everything, and I kidded him, and he's talking about, look at all these millionaires that are out here. And I go, millionaires? There's only 2 millionaires I know in the reptile business. One of them is Wayne Hill, and the other one is what's his face, the guy that owns Zooman, Gary Bagnell. And there's probably a few others, but and I'm just poking fun at Bob, but he's correct in promoting. You should strive to be a millionaire. If you're going to do something, go big or go home. Why bother? That sort of stuff. And so, but to make $1 million in 1 year from selling reptiles that you produced, that's a lot. That's a lot of work. I know what it takes because I remember the first time that we did it. And Dave, you're absolutely correct about colubras. I think I said it maybe the first time or I've shared it before. The ball pythons give us at Ophiological Services the capital to grow the business, to for capital growth and to stay debt free. The colubrids give us the cash flow to cover the payroll for 22 employees and utilities and on and on and on and everything else. I mean, it's a nut every week that we have to crack just to stay in business. So it's good to have both, because the colubrids, I mean, they sell for less money, but they sell, and they sell year round, and I'm telling you, there's money, big money in things that are boring and beautiful. That's not to say that I don't love the next $20,000 snake. In fact, I can't wait to see the next $20,000 snake. I don't know if it'll wet my whistle or not, but I'm anxious to see it. But gosh, there's so many flavors now. In fact, it's to the point of I think it turns a lot of people off because they can't make up their mind. Just like direct TV or satellite TV. I mean, 800-900 channels. Jesus, I just want to watch one. Damn, I just want a hamburger.
That's a
cold beer.
So back to that $1 million comment. I don't know if you went to Bob's last house he owned, but when he went into his reptile room, he had a framed poster on the wall that said how much you got to make a second, how much you got to make a minute, how much you got to make a day, how much you got to make a week, how much you got to make a year to have $1 million. And I took a picture when I was in there, and that's something that he looked at every day he walked in there. So, when he talks about that kind of stuff, that was the goal, that was the drive. And, that poster just stared every day. It's got to be motivated.
Well, if you would send me a snapshot, because he's never shared that with me. So I'll after this get together, I'll call up and chew his ass out a little bit. But, you have to have that Tony Robbins mentality. You got to understand what Brian Tracy talked about and other people like that. And it doesn't matter, Dave, if you make it or not, but that should be your goal. You should try your best. And some people might excel faster than the other. It doesn't matter. Just have fun, do your best, and be ready for a wild ride. And if you're in this business or this industry or this hobby, whatever you want to call it, if you're into it strictly for the money, you're NFL. You're not for long.
Yeah. My goals are like Vin Russo driven. Like all I want is a comfortable living where I could go to my kids' game or whatever, play and we want to go somewhere, we'll go somewhere, and that's all I need. I mean, I don't know. Like I definitely, when I was in sales, and one thing me and Bob have in common, like I have a strong sales background. That's why I feel like I kind of like I understand Bob. But like, man, I wanted a cigar boat. I wanted a freaking yacht. Like I had a whole like how money was such a thing I was after, but I don't know. I feel like if I had that money back then in my life, it would have been nothing but just terrible for me. And coming into a reptile world and seeing how you could get, I mean, shit, not only $300 for a snake, but $1,000 for a snake, $2,000. That was nuts to me. And then when I started selling snakes and getting money like that, for me, it was everything I could ever ask for. And yeah, I mean, who doesn't want to make $1 million? But I don't have it on a wall, like dying to make $1 million. You know what I mean? I just feel like it's going to get there, at some point. But I don't know.
I mean, we all use different benchmarks to determine what we're doing. And,
Yes.
It's one thing to generate $1 million worth of sales. It's another thing to make $1 million profit at the end of the year. But if you make $1 million profit, hopefully you have a good tax accountant and good tax lawyer that keeps you from paying all those stupid taxes. Because if you make a profit, it just goes to the other guy. I mean, the money is in managing debt, and that's something that Vin understands, and we won't go there. But and everybody has a big show. I can promise you, if you stay long in this business or in this industry long enough, you'll have a grand slam. And for me, I remember, and I shared this with Vin, and I shared it with other people, but it was in '92, and everybody was just backstabbing one another, and had been since 1990 on albino berms and albino greens and labradors and the whole 9 yards. And I went to Daytona. I was loaded. I mean, I was friggin' loaded. And I came to that show to teach people a lesson, because the year prior, everybody agreed on a certain price. 10 minutes after the show started, people are dropping prices like
I remember that
in Vegas. Yeah. And anyways, and I can sell. I mean, I sold people snakes that didn't need a damn snake. I sold 3 albino berms to a guy wearing barefoot and overalls and no t-shirt at all, just sitting there with one strap over his shoulder, and he pulled out his money, and I sold him 3 berms. Probably shouldn't have done it. The guy's name was Snake Tattoo. He's still alive. He's a good guy. He's a hell of a tattoo artist. But anyways, I just was on a roll. Anyways, where I'm going with this story is I weighed my money. I didn't count it. I weighed my money. You know what 10 pounds of 100s look like? You know what 30 pounds of 50s look like? You know what 20 pounds of 20s look like? It's a lot of money. I made enough money to build a 3,000 square foot building, cover my business for a year, and date my wife, Cindy. One show. And I have never done it again since, nor do I plan on, but I was at the right place at the right time. And my attitude was, I'm selling. In fact, I came home on that Saturday night and loaded up and brought more back to Orlando. I said, I'm going to sell the shit out of this stuff.
I remember doing a show in Orlando, and I don't remember, three tables, maybe something like that. And my then girlfriend, who's now my wife, came with me, and I sold everything, every single snake I sold. And we wanted to make a trip out of it. So our plan was to stay in Orlando and do like the whole Disney thing. So I ended up selling my display cases, and I even sold the tables, because other vendors needed extra tables. I sold the tables. And I remember, I'll never forget it. I remember my wife, then girlfriend, looked at me and said, I can't believe we can make money doing this. That's what she said to me. And if you would have asked me 35 years ago, Vin, do you think you can make a living breeding reptiles? I would have been like, what are you, nuts? No way. But then I started seeing the industry grow in the late 80s, early 90s, especially early 90s. The albino Burmese python catapulted everything. I made good money on those when I was young, because they were like the first investment animal,
Yeah.
Like what did Mark Bell? He had 1,000 of them at one point
when Mark Bell in the early 90s moved to Florida. I think he moved down here in 92 or something like that. He had 300 adult females. 300 adult females.
Wow.
And then all the males and all the girls. The reason I know is because I was helping him buy rabbits, and I had a lot of berms, and I had connections with all these rabbit buyers. I remember one time we bought like 700 rabbits. I had people lined up. I mean, you never seen so damn many rednecks with so many trucks and trailers and buying rabbits. And oh my God, it was crazy as hell. And we threw them in the back of a 20-foot U-Haul, and he drove them to Naples, That's just, I mean, we did some crazy stuff back in the day. And I'm glad those days are over with. Trust me.
Oh, me too. The rabbits.
I mean, yeah, you can't buy rabbits today. Back then they were 65 cents a pound, but God, you could piss away some money.
I would go to the auctions in Pennsylvania. I would drive all the way to the auctions in Pennsylvania with my friend Willie, and we would look for a rabbit cage, because they would have them, on display. There'd be like 10 in a cage, and we'd look for a cage that had like one rabbit with like some blood on it or something, like it got beat up, and nobody would bid on that. So we would get those cages, and we'd load up my van with cages of rabbits just for our Burmese python. But that's all we had to do back then. That's how we had to feed them.
Was that like the magic rodent, or not rodent, but a prey item for a Burmese back then? Like rabbits?
No, it was the size. You couldn't fill them up on rafts, you know, especially big ones.
Pigs weren't a thing back then?
They were too expensive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, and there was a lot of rabbit growers down here in the South, but you know, a lot of things have changed, and I just thank God every day that we got out of the burn business per se, and I'm glad that we bonsai'd the business. And it's a long story what Mark Bell and I had to deal with here in Florida when the laws started changing, and that picture of that berm eating that alligator when it blew up with the alligator in its belly, you know, that was like the shot heard around the world. And I remember we were involved in a lot of rulemaking changes, and we were getting the boat back in the water. And I knew it, you know, the nuclear weed whacker was going to hit the 800 pounds of crap that was out there. And I called up Mark and I said, Mark, I said, do we want to kill the sacred cow or do you want to fight? And he said, kill the sacred cow.
Yeah.
Because Mark had a much bigger operation than anybody else in the country. And Mark and I, for 20 years, we produced so doggone many berms. It was crazy. And it was getting, you know, it was laborious. It was expensive. And there were more and more people around the world breeding them. So it wasn't the thrill. It wasn't, you know, the new thing per se. And it's the best thing we ever did. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done ball pythons because we'd all be out there chasing retics and berms and stuff like that. And we'd probably be out of business. So the worst thing had to happen. So we killed it. Yeah. And we had to here in Florida, and everything else dominated. And I just started promoting bonsai. And the regulators and the legislators. Yeah.
I got rid of all the berms.
Yeah, it was crazy, and the politics and the animal rights people and everything else. So then bonsaiing everything, and then the best thing about the balls is, you know, designer morphs. You don't want anything that looks like something that comes from the wild. You want to have something that could only come from, you know, captive culture where people understand genetics, you know, and the codoms and the recessives and on and on and on. And it's just mind-boggling. I mean, God knows somebody's going to hatch out something tonight that they're not going to be able to figure it out because it's probably going to have too many genes in it.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, they're posting it for sale anyways, and just, you know, fuck it, and they're just going to see what happens.
So I mean, for me, and you know, Ben went a certain way with boas, and boas were okay, but I wasn't as successful as I should have been because fighting the weather and the heat and everything else down here, and the balls really did better, and I'd been breeding them for a long time. The burns were too big and they had to go.
Yeah.
And I love my boas. I mean, my favorite boas, I had a bunch of Argentine boas, Occidentalis. In fact, there's a picture of I had a pre-CITES import permit for Argentine boas, and Ben's got a copy of it in his book. I think it was your first book that you did, right? The complete book on breeding boas.
It's in both books.
It is?
Yeah.
Got the more right here. I keep the more close by all the time, Eugene.
Yeah.
Right here.
Okay. All right. Well, but anyways, I mean, I had the privilege and the pleasure of being able to engage in stuff like that and getting out of Occidentalis. I mean, God, I love those things. And I'm just so thankful that I got the opportunity to work with him and had somebody like Ben to oversee the operation. And, you know, we had so much fun, and we did so much cool stuff. But just moving forward for me, you know, the reason we went into the volume business is it's something that's duplicatable. And that's what I'm looking at, something that works in my absence, to have systems in place. You know, we're not, the cost of the animals is down, but the demand is crazy because not everybody's going to go to a reptile show, even though there's a plethora of reptile shows that are going on, and everybody should go and visit a reptile show at least once in their local area, regardless of the promoter. You know, I mean, people should go out there. So there's so much education to be done from stakeholders, the four of us, as well as promoters dealing with the public. The market is changing so fast because of social media, and because and you know, MJ, you got I've watched some of the girls that get on here and are talking about pies and various other things, and I have just sat back and have been so entertained. And we really need more women in the industry. I'm telling you. I mean, if there's anything, and I can honestly say, out of the 22 or 23 employees we have, I think I have 16 or 17 women of all ages. And you know what? They get it done. And I mean, we need more women at all entry levels and stages in this industry. We really do. We need more women. And so I would love to get behind an all-female farm, so to speak, or an all-female business entity.
Jane, what if your wife has a really good job and you can't afford to have her quit that job? Like, what do you recommend in my case here?
In your defense, you
Yes.
keep your wife going in your plan A, and you tell her that you're going to go out and hire some other gals.
No,
I mean, trust me.
She's gonna quit then. It's over.
No, it's not. No, it's not. She'll like it. She'll like it. She'll like it because they'll get shit done.
Yeah.
You know, because you're not getting the shit done. So these other gals, they'll get shit done because you're too busy, you know, playing with your mustache and scratching your balding head and sitting here on this trap top with a bunch of old dinosaurs. Well, Dave's not a dinosaur. At least Dave's got hair and a beard. You know, I'm sitting here. Well.
False advertising, buddy. I got a soft spot back there.
I got the hair. Dave doesn't.
You mixed this up. Yeah.
Well, I got the bowling ball. Just get a Sharpie and put 3 black dots on it and go for it. You know, or I feel like my head's that cantaloupe, like Ben Affleck in that movie, The Accountant. You know what I mean?
Hey, but before I forget, because Eugene, you said this on the show with Bill and Marshall that you just simply don't breed boas because where you live, but. Is that because of the volume of boas you would need to breed? Because I know boa breeders in Florida and they pull it off, but then again, they're in a temperature controlled room. So is it because you said it was too warm down in Florida, and are you more ambient when it comes to heating up a whole facility? Or why would you say boas are not really ideal for you to do in Florida?
It's the discipline that they need, and the reason people like Vin and Pete call because it's cooler 9 or 10 months out of the year. It's easier to get that thermal gradient and let those animals go to the warm spot and have a cool spot. You know, I think people cook their boas to death. The one boa that we've always had good success with Epicrates, and I got rid of all the Brazilians because they look normal, and I don't want anything that looks normal. Some come out of the wild. So the only boa I've got are just, the Colombian rainbow boas, and we do the albinos, the Lucies, and the Antares. And they're a lot like a pine snake. I mean, they're like an uplands pine snake, and they never dry shed. They do fine. They're very prolific, and they are very scalable, and they fit in a CB70 tray. And that's if it doesn't fit in a CB70 tray compassionately, then I'm not gonna mess with it. But there's a lot of boas, guys, here in Florida. But are they consistent? Is it scalable? I doubt that. I'll put my data on boas against anybody in terms of a marketing strategy where you're going to make money. Hobby breeders on boas, have fun, because when you hit, but you don't hit consistently enough. And maybe there's somebody out there other than Ben Russo, but I don't know of anybody in Florida that is consistent on boas. I mean, Da Vinci Boas does real good. He moved up from St. Pete up here north of me up in High Springs. There's some other guys as well. But Ben, you probably know more of the boa clientele here in Florida. I don't.
Yeah.
It's not what I do and stuff like that. So there's something to be said. I mean, look what Jeff Ronnie's at up. He's up in Canada or almost the North Pole, and
Missouri now.
He has to keep everything rolling. So there's something to be said.
The major compensating factor for Eugene with boas was because I've been to his place many times. I think what it is Eugene has a few buildings, and the buildings in the summer get really hot, and the ball pythons love it.
Yeah,
they have no problems with that. The colubrids you air condition in the summer, and just so they don't cook. But the buildings you were having the boas in, I remember, were really hot. They had other, they had balls in them and other stuff, and they just can't really handle that.
You're right. I mean, because of the vaulted ceilings and the skylights and the size of the rooms. But I mean, I run the air conditioner right now. I keep the rooms at about 80, 81 degrees. And because everybody's, and that was the advantage of switching over to Freedom Breeder. That way we have a nice thermal gradient for the ball pythons. They don't need a lot of heat. They just need a little bit of heat.
Yeah.
The boas, on the other hand, 80% of a snake's body is above the ground. And so the boas, when they want heat, they just dilate their lymphatics and they pump their lymphatic fluid or their blood through parts of their body. They don't have to have the whole body under the heat, but they need to have some sort of significant heat.
Yeah.
And especially, I can remember the Argentine boas. I mean, and the one boa that drove me up a wall was the Sanzinius. I mean, I can remember having a room with the Sanzinius and basically letting it down into the high 40s, and they'd be crawling around and happy as a pig in mud and on and on and on. And I mean, I had the damnedest time breeding Sanzinias, but they wanted it cold.
Wow.
And I remember Bill Love telling me that he found Sanzinia on the ground with frost.
Wow.
On the ground. Yeah. Up in
Go
the mountains and stuff like that.
And that's a species, Eugene, you don't hear a lot of people having success with to this day. Like, you don't see a lot of Sanzinias like floating around. They happen, but it's not happening all the time.
No. I never had the success for as hard and as much money as we spent on them as we could. We had big King Horneye from Australia, and I so wanted to breed them, and never had the success. And that was a project I had to let go. You know, we've had to let go of a lot of projects, and it's not that it was a business decision. It wasn't personal. And for me, I mean, Ben will tell you, I mean, for me, it's business. It's not a hobby. It's business. And I want to grow the industry, and I want the recognition and respect. And I spent so much time for the last 40 years just studying agriculture here in Florida, whether it's the swine or the bovine or especially the poultry industry, and how they do things, and looking at the numbers. I want us to survive. I want us to thrive and grow. I mean, there's value in producing reptiles, whether it's a gecko or chameleon, you know, or a bearded dragon or a corn snake or ball python or a berm. There's an economic need. People consume reptiles. They may not stir fry them or barbecue them, but they go out and they spend millions of dollars every year buying reptiles.
Probably billions.
Huh?
It's probably billions.
Oh yeah. If you could get the numbers in, but so it's, to me, it's one of the biggest overlooked secrets, you know, and it's tough. I mean, like what Ben was saying earlier, you know, it's nice if you're the only orchestrator for your one-man band, but then by the same token, if that band leader doesn't perform, you don't get. And for me, I'm looking at, how do I get off the boat? How do I sell this business, or how do I lease it to somebody, you know, so that they can have their fair share of animals? Because let's face it, the snakes, the live animals business drives all these ancillary sales. The people that are selling the cages, the equipment, the bulbs, the substrate, the water bowls, and the backdrops, and on and on and on and on, and then all the rodents. I mean, you know, Kevin Bryant is probably the other guy that's truly a millionaire. Between Todd Goodman at Timberline, Kevin Bryant at Rodent Pro, Gary Bagnell, and Wayne Hill. I mean, if there's anybody that's made $1 million every year, it's probably those four guys, you know, that I'm thinking of, or they're millionaires from a true tax point of view. And if there's some other people in there, well, then by all means, chirp up their names. I mean, I'm happy for those guys. I wish there was more people that I could say are grossing or making over $1 million a year profit, you know, to grow their business. But long as we're having fun, and I'm having fun, despite all the other personal things going on, I mean, it's just the circumstances of life. You know, you got to run with them. You got to deal with them. And it's worth it. I mean, I so much time has gone by so fast, and Ben, I can't believe the sheer volume of people that are in this business, and tens of thousands of names I've never heard of. And you know, it doesn't bother me that nobody knows who I am. That's the way it's supposed to be, you know? Yeah. We just kind of move on in the night, man. I know the truth. I know what I've done. I know what I've seen. I'm at peace. I'm one of the richest men you'll ever meet.
You know, your one comment you made about, you know, not how it's completely unrealistic to make that kind of money in the industry, but, you know, I've always told people that, you know, if you're feeding these animals, if you're giving us a place to sell these animals, or if you're giving us things to house these animals in, those are the guys that are always making the most money in the hobby. That's the most consistent business. Those guys will never fail no matter what the industry is doing, because we got to feed them, we got to house them, we got to sell them.
Built-in obsolescence. Toilet paper always sells.
Yeah. So this is for both you guys. You know, you guys were talking about kind of the fall of the Burmese python and the rise of the ball python. If the rise of the ball python didn't happen, do you think there was another species out there that could have got to that level? Like, do you think, where would the hobby be right now if there wasn't the ball python?
Bit.
I think the ball python, and I've said this before with you guys, I think the ball python is responsible for, you know, catapulting this industry to where it went. But the ball python always was a popular pet, even when they was just normals, you know, because they were cheaper. They were coming out of Africa. But I can't think of a replacement. There, at one point in time, people were thinking the blood pythons would be the replacement of the Burmese python. And it kind of happened in a way. I mean, blood pythons are far more popular now than they were 25 years ago. So, but yeah, the ball pythons, you know, here's the thing. The ball pythons are always going to be real popular. You know, like Eugene said, people love orange snakes. They love white snakes. They're never going to go out of fashion. You know, we're just seeing an adjustment in the market right now. I've said this to you guys before. I treat these animals like they're stocks. You know, the stock on some animals is lower now. Like ball python stocks, I would say, are down. The boa constrictor stocks for me are level. They're not going up or down. They went up a bit and they've kind of stayed there, but they're not going down. Colubrid stocks are pretty much leveled. You know, they may have went down a tiny bit, but you know, the bearded dragon stocks, they're still, there's a demand, you know.
What about that Condro stock, Vin? Come on now.
Condro's stock is way up.
Yes,
you know? Yeah. Oh, definitely. From when Eugene and I first were doing this stuff, I mean,
oh yeah,
I remember Eugene and I having trouble getting $700-800 for a Condro. Now it's $7,000-8,000 for a Condro. You know,
how's it make you feel, Eugene? I mean, being one of the pioneers in the green tree python game, knowing that Condros are the top of the top right now and selling the way they are, what is that? What goes on in your head, Eugene?
I'm happy. I mean, you guys should make the money if you're willing to work that hard. I mean, we used to sell babies for $750, you know, back in the late '80s, early '90s, and yeah, it got tough, and it got tough because we empowered so many people, you know, to do it, and that's one of the reasons I told Trooper after 28 years. I said, Trooper, I said, we've done what we need to do. These damn things are everywhere. And I said, there's no reason to be concerned. And the genetic diversity and all the things that were going on, we ran with it. We served the purpose, you know, of getting it out there and promoting it and selling and spinning the dream. So if somebody can get $20,000 for a Condro, just like Brock was getting $50,000 for a banana years ago, go for it. I'm happy. But for me and my business model, that is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that $20,000 Condro. If somebody wanted to breed Condros and sell them where they can mass produce them or produce a lot of them and sell them for $200 or $300 all day long, you know. And I mean, look at people that are doing arachnids. You talk about an exploding part of the pet trade, arachnids.
They're blown up.
Oh my God! You talk about a penny stock that has become like Bitcoin wishes it was. It's arachnids. I mean, I've never seen the infatuation with arachnids or invertebrates. And
isopods are big too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Isopods.
$600 isopods.
Yeah.
Yeah, these terrarium cages, you know, where you've got these cleaners. I think it's cool. I think it's great. It's not my business model, but I'm all for it, and I'll support it. I mean, Dr. Tillis is going crazy on that. He was trying to get me to switch over and do all that and all the colubrid cages. And Harmony, my colubrid manager, said, no, we ain't counting out isopods. We ain't doing this and that. And they're cool, but no, you know, so it's hard to say no. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. But if somebody wants to run with it, so pick what it is that you want to excel at. And I learned by saying no and getting rid of a lot of projects. And for me, the ball pythons made the most sense. I never thought it was going to end up being ball pythons, but then I saw how things were with chondros, and then, you know, we produced a lot of emeralds, and that was a lot of work. They really like it cold. I mean, I'd leave them outside until it got into the low 50s, high 40s, and run the sprinkler system. My doc out here at Gas Peak called. He used to come down here and just veg out under the mist system and everything. I mean, Pete was crazy back in the early 90s. He's still a little crazy now, but I love him. He can tell you some stories. That'd be a guy to get on here. It'd be X-rated, but it would be great to get him on Triple Talk. It would be wild and crazy. And
he would have to say sorry first publicly, and I don't know if I want Pete to say sorry to anybody. He said the N-word on a podcast on live, and it kind of messed everything up for him a little bit. People got really upset. And
that's why
I don't blame him either, but like still, like I have to delegate that and figure that out somehow.
Yes, and if he can't regulate himself, then he negates himself, and that's what he's done. So his success is, you know, Pete's in a tough spot, and I know a lot there and stuff. But I mean, I still love him. I remember when he came on the scene out of nowhere. Yeah. And nobody knew who he was. And I told him, I said, if you can make these albino boas, I said, you will write your name in the sky.
I will say, guys, one of the toughest things about this, Eugene and Vin, me and Dave were talking before we went live, how like you'll meet some people that they go through some stuff in life after being like either full-time reptile keepers. And it's unfortunate because like some people are able to, you know, ride through the dark days, and then you just some people like get dragged by it, and then you see their collection kind of going down and everything else. And it's really sad to see, but it's just a reality of like what some people go through. And like, you know, not everyone's future is guaranteed in this. And I don't know, as much as it's scary, it's kind of like, you know, I'm just very blessed to be where I'm at, and to even have Dave here with me and you two with me, because you just, you know, some people just aren't that lucky, you know?
Well, I hear what you're saying. I mean, Pete's gone through some tragic things. I've gone through some tragic things, and the circumstances suck, but it's all about how we handle the circumstances and everything else. And I'm not going to get into that very deep, but shit happens to everybody. And bad things, horrific things happen to good people when you least expect it. And if you live long enough, MJ, and you will, you're going to see things that it's like, I can't wrap my head around it. I can't figure it out. And I mean, I'm living that right now. I didn't sign up for what I'm going through, but I'm going through it. And I know God got me in it. God's going to get me through it. And it's my trust and faith in God that enables me to endure all these things. Because if Cindy was alive, she'd want me to do the show. Cindy was here in the flesh, she would be encouraging me, because that's what she did the 30-something plus years, you know, that we grew this business and shared our lives together and had kids and everything. Ben knows that, because Ben knew her as well. But life goes on, and it sucks, and it's not fair. And you know, shit happens and stuff. So, you know, we're going to have probably one of the best, biggest years we've ever had here at OS. Across the board. I'm excited. I mean, you know, the numbers are crazy, but I'm so excited about tomorrow. I'm so excited about the future. Awesome. You know, having all of this information and these numbers and this data, there's just so much stuff to share with people, but I just don't know that people really care, or that people want to go long. And that's one of the things that's been hard for me. And I know it's been tough for Ben. You know, you meet some people and they go, man, this guy's got the talent. This girl's got the touch. This girl's got the money. She's got the infrastructure. She could crush this thing. She could, you know, she could be the next Amazon, so to speak, or something along those lines. And then something happens. You lose your dream, or somebody turns your light out, and you know, you lose your dream. Somebody steals your joy. I don't know, MJ, but I'm just telling you, your success is going to be the biggest challenge in your life, because your success will be the initiator of your demise. If you don't stay humble as you grow Trap Talk and doing all these things on and on and on, you know what I'm saying? Then it'll consume you, and you'll lose everything that you consider dear. But if you stay humble, and if you stay hungry, you know, and learn the F word, and that's to forgive and be forgiven, then you're going to be hugely successful. I mean, you're just getting started. The sky. There's no limit for you. You guys can ride this thing and take it to the next level. Technologically speaking, I have no effing idea what that's going to look like. You know, I love technology, but you know, I try not to let it intimidate me, because I'm just old school.
Just used a laptop for the first time in, I think, in 30 years, not too long ago. So it's okay. I think him and technology are just now getting acquainted. So he's right there with you, Eugene.
It's tough, man. It's really tough.
Yeah. It's all discipline. So good, it ought to be easier.
Hey, you hear that? It's all discipline, Vincent.
All discipline.
Kiss my.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean,
they say apple's easy, but it's not easy.
You got to do the same things over and over again.
Well, you know, that's why I got young people in their 20s that know how to do this. I said, here, do this for me.
Dave, how do you feel? You feel warmed up? You ready for some topics, or what? Are you not there yet?
Well, I mean, I'm bringing stuff up. You know, I kind of, you know, Eugene, you didn't really answer. You know, if the ball pythons didn't step into the hobby when they did,
you're right.
Like, do you think there was another species that could have been, or you maybe saw could have been? Because I know the bloods were said, but you know, I remember the blood conversation being it could replace the ball python. So it seems like bloods have always replaced something, but never replaced anything.
I never know. There's nothing that's in my. You know what? I hope I live long enough to see being wrong, but I don't see anything topping ball pythons. I really don't. I mean, I'm all in on ball pythons. I mean, I've invested millions of dollars and decades of time and everything else. And, you know, when I started out, it was venomous. I mean, venomous, and big stuff. The bigger, the better. I used to tell people colubras are for pussies. You know what I'm saying? Well, guess what? You know, we produce 25,000 colubras a year, maybe more. I don't know. Harvey have to give me the numbers. You know, and so this, 73-year-old bald-headed pussy is into colubras big time, and because there's money. There's money in colubras, and there's a need for colubras. I mean, globally, not just in the United States. I mean, our distribution is globally, and it is amazing. Sure, people can breed things in China and everything else, but nobody's going to be as passionate. I mean, if they're forced to do it, it's not the same as us wanting to do it. So I don't care what the Chinese do. I don't care what they do in Taiwan. I don't care what they do in Australia. I really don't. I know what. Listen, I have my goal. I have my numbers. I'm going to make them. I'm going to make them. I'm going to meet them, and we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And people, listen, if you work as hard as me, like Ben was saying, with the discipline, then you deserve a good life.
Yeah.
And I told you all last time we did a triple talk thing, my payday is not in the money. My payday is in one word: relationships. I get to spend time with you three guys.
Yeah.
I get to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. This is priceless. This is priceless to me. This is priceless to me right now.
Yeah. When do you get my bill? And it's
Send it. I'm not hurting over here. Send it.
Eugene,
okay.
do you remember I went to your place in the early 2000s, and you were just starting to see the ball python thing was a good investment. I remember you and I was standing in one of the in the annex in the back of your house. You had those, you called them the BFCs, the big fucking cages with the berms in them.
Yeah.
I remember seeing 3 of them stacked up with 3 giant berms in them. I step back. I'm like, Eugene, you realize in that same space you're gonna have 60 ball pythons, and you're like, you're right. What am I doing with these things?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Actually, it was more than that because those were 8-foot cages. I also remember one time, I think you were here or Mark Belly was here. We were walking around and there was like a wall of albinos I was raising up.
I remember that.
Yeah. Tell the story. I forget it.
We're walking around and Eugene's showing us, some stuff. And he pulls out a couple of drawers and, there's a whole wall. No joke. A whole wall. 50 or 100. I forget how many.
More than that.
All albino ball pythons. I remember Eugene pulling out the drawers saying, shit, I forgot I had these. How do you forget you have hundreds of albino ball pythons at a time when they're a lot of money?
You forgot
they were a lot of money.
You forgot you had a wall, Eugene?
You had a wall of them, raising them up. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's cages. I mean, you come to Florida and check it out, MJ. I'll show you around.
I would love to. Dave, you want to do it or what?
100%. I'd love to do that.
Oh my God.
So I mean, we've made a lot of changes and we've gone through a lot of things. I mean, we've had to change, MJ, to survive. If you're not changing, you're dying.
No, 100%.
And I tell you, it is hard for me to say no. I mean, when I moved out here in the 80s, I thought, man, we're going to have outdoor enclosures with Argentine boas in them, and we're going to have gaboon vipers outside. So when it's 20 degrees, we're going to go outside and see what these damn snakes are doing, And I wanted to build all this kind of stuff, and it's like, nope. I mean, I've had a lot of my dreams just go away, but other dreams have come along.
Why couldn't you put stuff outside, Eugene? Was it just because it just wasn't practical, or what was the reason?
Well, it wasn't economically feasible because what I was going to build was going to be to satisfy the requirements with FWC. I'm going to spend $30,000 on a 15 by 40 foot cage that's owl proof, hawk proof, 2 foot deep, footers,
hurricane proof.
Oh yeah, but I mean, MJ, if I had your money, I could go build it. And I wanted Komodos because Trooper, he hatched off the first Komodo in the early 90s up there at NZP, and eventually it got to the point where there were so many zoos with Komodos they were freezing the eggs. Remember Wayne Hill had a meltdown one time when he couldn't get Komodo eggs, or we couldn't get Komodos in Florida, on and on and on. And that's the truth. They produce so many Komodos here in zoos in the United States, they just started freezing the eggs.
Jeez. But to go what you said, Eugene, I mean, I had lace monitors. I had to rehome because I originally wanted to put them outside here in San Diego and build them an outdoor enclosure. But two things, when I actually looked into building the exact enclosure that I wanted, where it was like escape proof, hawk proof, all the above, I was looking at well over $30,000 for that enclosure for him that I wanted to do. So once I told my wife that plan, what do you think happened? It was all over. It was done after that.
Well, that's why you have a wife that has wisdom and she keeps your little butt in line. Be thankful you have her on your side.
I know.
She's the key to your success. You know that, right?
100%. Yes. That's why I want her on the team. I want to hire her. If I that's like a dream, like employee of mine is having my wife a part of this, because I know it would level up everything. I know it would.
Well, she might fire you. she might say, we need to get rid of MJ. He ain't it. You know what? Keep it the way it is. If there's peace between you and your wife,
oh yeah, we're good.
That dude, just be patient.
Yeah.
Keep the peace. Let her do what she does.
I got to ask you guys, especially you, Eugene, being involved with the, the whole big snake scene. What do you think the future's headed right now for Burmese and retic keepers? I mean, obviously we talk not a lot, but there's speculation of what the future holds. But I want to hear from you, Eugene, like for any, retic keeper or Burm keeper out there currently right now. I don't know if you have a message for them or just like a heads up, or I don't know what's your feeling about that?
I think the big snake market is only going to do one thing, and that's grow. And you can bonsai these guys to a certain point. You can't tame a big snake, but you can condition a snake. I mean, I watch how I've been to Jay Brewer's. It's been a long time since I've been to Jay's, but I've watched how he's grown up with his retics and the things that he does. Sometimes I wish he'd be a little bit more careful and more considerate, but you know how it is with these guys and these wanker shots. But big snakes, there's nothing wrong with big snakes. There's nothing wrong with venomous stuff. It's the people. Yeah. And that's my concern. I'm not worried about the snakes. I'm worried about what, is some dumbass going to get involved with this and really screw it up. I mean, you've seen it, all these so-called enhancers, and I don't call them enhancers. I'll refrain from telling you what I think, but these guys, the way that they're free handling venomous stuff, or getting bit by gators or crocs and various other things like that, and it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. But their ego, is so hungry, and they're doing everything and anything that they can to be recognized. But back to the most important thing. I mean, the guys with the big snakes, I think Bob Clark's doing real good. I don't know his market. I mean, I've known Bob for 50 plus years. I love Bob. He's hugely successful. There's an overseas market, and you have to think global. You can't think Oklahoma, or you can't think Florida. You got to look at things are global. We live in a global market world. The world has shrunk, and it is shrinking tighter and tighter and tighter. I mean, what's going to happen, is Chewy going to start selling live animals? Is Amazon going to start selling live animals? I don't know. I think it's going to happen. I really do. Look at what PetSmart is doing, the way that they're changing their business. They have their own lines of cages now being made in China. What's Hagen going to do with Exoterra? What's Gary Bagnell going to do with ZooMed? I mean, he's got thousands of patents and thousands of products, but I'm just telling you, I mean, one fish eats another fish, eats another fish.
Yeah.
Vin knows that better than anybody because of all his decades on Wall Street. And, I've learned a lot about the simplicity of success and how it can be detrimental, and you have to be careful how you market your success. So the big snakes, I think, are going to be solid. I mean, I would love to have some big snakes. I mean, some of these berms and these retics, and still one of my favorite snakes is just a good-looking, normal green and gold retic. There's nothing more commanding that and a big king cobra. I mean, those two animals right there, just God, they don't need anything else except just to look at. So, but I don't have the time to look at them. But I've had the opportunity to raise them up. I've had the opportunity to have them both and do stuff. So I'm excited for the people that can market and manage the big snakes. They have access to pigs, or they have access to rabbits, or something like that. Yeah, I think it's huge, and I don't see them doing anything but growing. It'll grow, MJ, as well as they market it. It'll grow as well as they police themselves, and as well as they regulate themselves. There needs to be an understanding amongst the brothers and sisters that are doing big snakes, the same as it is with venomous. There needs to be that unwritten law this is how we're going to do it to kind of preserve and protect the integrity of success more than just money. I think for a lot of people, not being able to have big snakes has driven a lot of people out of Florida. Has really, crushed a lot of people's dreams, and they've moved to California. I mean, California is the best place to have big snakes, and you can have stuff in California that you can't have in Florida. I mean, as backwards as California is in some ways, they are incredibly liberal. You can have everything and anything.
Just not venomous. You can't have like anything that's non-native venomous. That's the one strict thing about Cali.
Right. Well, and
big snake. Yeah, you're right. You can have any big snake you want here.
Listen, there's so much stuff. Why is it that people get stupid and they want what they can't have instead of enjoying what they can have?
Yeah.
And I think some people just, want to just beat their head against the wall, and they're not happy unless they're miserable, or their identity is in misery instead of in being, at peace. But yeah, and the same thing goes for big monitors. God, I mean, I wish I had the time. Crop monitors amaze the hell out of me, but I don't like getting whipped. But they're a beautiful beast, Yeah. And I never got into the monitors. I had to say no, because if I did, I don't think I could have stopped myself. I mean, I'm so weak. I'm so weak, and I just like, nope, don't touch it, don't touch it, don't touch it. God, I mean, no, I mean, I want it all, and I've learned that my wants will kill me.
So, kind of go back on a couple things you were talking about. You're talking about like certain ways people conduct themselves in the hobby, talking about allowing animals to bite them for their YouTube videos. Popped up in my feed. You might remember the old Steve Irwin. I think he had a water python around his neck, and it just started chewing on his neck on a live interview, and he was playing it real cool.
It was a carpet python.
Sure, I thought it was an olive or a water, because I remember seeing it again today. It was something patternless. But the reason I bring that up is that generation watched that and learned that there was like success behind allowing an animal to bite you. I remember the first time actually seeing him on Animal Planet jumping out of a little boat onto an alligator, just the sensationalism of it all. But that is why I feel like a lot of our generation in the hobby does stuff like that, because they grew up watching that kind of stuff.
And here's the thing. We're created, men especially, are created to do one thing, and that is to get on an adventurous journey called life with no holds barred. In other words, are you willing to risk it all? Are you willing to slide down the razor edge banister of life and not worry about your feet bleeding? In other words, go for it. And I get it, and I understand why people do the things that they do. The unintended consequences, it hasn't hurt us too much. Luckily, not a lot of people are going too crazy on this. I'm not judging. I just know the battle. I just know the fight that comes out there. So those people want to do it. God love them, man. Let them go for it, because the things I did when I was a kid, you can't do today. You can't go do. And Ben would probably say the same things.
Same thing, yeah.
I mean, put it this way.
Water python, just for the record.
Yeah, I'm watching the video right now.
And it's
so
going.
You said it just bit him, and he just let it continue to chew on him.
Can we play that video? Are you allowed to put that up on the podcast?
Yeah, I'll put it up. I don't think there will be a strike answer.
He played it like a champ, man. Like he took it.
Yeah. So this had to be like what, the late 80s, early 90s. I don't know.
Yeah.
Early 90s.
They're just biting his neck. He took it like nothing for sure.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah. But I feel like he had to. He's on TV.
Look at the girl's face. She's completely freaked out. He's like, he's looking in the camera to see what it's doing.
She's like, is this a part of the show?
It's got me.
Look at that. Oh, man. Oh, there you go.
I'll let go.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's pretty mild. That's pretty mild.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not judging these people that do that. I get it. I understand it. We've all done crazy things. I mean, it is what it is. And when they get older and we're dead and gone, there'll be some other young 20-year-old doing something that they're going to go, man, that's just crazy as hell. I don't know what that'll be, but you guys will have to tell me.
So, well, speaking of influencer on that kind of spectrum, what do you think of Barczyk, Eugene? What kind of fan were you? Brian Barczyk?
Brian is one of the best showmen I've ever seen.
Mm.
It's not about being a fan. I mean, I knew Brian when he was younger, and I have a lot of respect for Brian and Lori. Do I agree with everything he did? No, I never will. I mean, they're you know, it's fine. It's business. But he was hugely successful at getting the word out there, and he built a tremendous following. I think he was probably the first that got into the millions and stuff. And he was smart. He was sharp, and he was damn good at it. I mean, you know, I would sell Brian animals, and they would do a video with him and Lori, you know, of like opening up the boxes and watching him get excited about all the different animals I would sell him and that they would sell, and watching the two of them. I mean, they were hilarious. It was fun. I enjoyed watching his antics and his comments in the way that, you know, it was kind of like watching Monty Python, you know, with John Cleese, except it was Brian Barczyk. And maybe a lot of people out there don't know what Monty Python is all about, but go check it out. But Brian was a master, and I admired his showmanship. And it's like, man, this guy is damn good at it. Now, other people have tried to emulate him and various other things, and I think you need to have your own style and on and on. But yeah. Brian, you know, listen, that's a candle too that burned out way too soon, you know.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And I've said that, you know, about people that are close to me and other folks that I've met over the years. It's like, no, this will continue to happen. We're not guaranteed of tomorrow, and what happened to Brian, you know, really, really sucks. So he will, you know, and I don't partake of those shows. It's not what I do, and I'm assuming that there's still a tremendous following. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Am I right or am I wrong that people are still?
They're still carrying the torch, you know, as much as they can. I mean, it's really hard to fulfill what Brian was doing, like to be that person every day, day in, day out. Like there's people who woke up every morning turning on snake bites or whatever it is that Brian was doing on his channel. And I was one of them. Like Brian sucked me into this when I was going through some crazy life stuff, and I just Googled ball pythons, and, you know, all his YouTube videos came up, and that's when I was introduced to the world of reptile breeding and the whole morph side of things. And it just was like, I mean, it's my biggest reason why I'm at where I'm at right now, you know, and then full circle meeting them and everything. It was just kind of surreal, but
right.
Yeah. It was just, I don't know, like,
listen, yeah. MJ, you're doing the same thing in a different context that he did. You know what you're doing with your trap talk, and you are enabling other people. You're encouraging other folks to do something, maybe not the exact same thing, but to do something. We all have that burning desire in our gut to answer the call of life that is on us. Brian answered it to the best of his abilities, but he had to check out and go home way sooner than anybody wanted him to go home. And I feel for Lori, because I can relate. I know what it's like when you lose your partner. It sucks. And but life goes on, and she's going and she's moving forward, and in some way, somehow they need to keep that flame going. And people need to, you know, I don't know how they marketed that. And you're right. You can't replace Brian, but there's no reason and there's no need for him not to be significant daily in the world. I mean, people like you who have a platform, you should promote him, or you should have an archive show for, hey, let's check out an old Barczyk episode here. Let's go down memory lane, something like that. Because here's the thing, there's kids coming along that never got to meet him or don't know who he is. And it's up to people like you. You're young, but it's up to you to show them, hey, this is ice cream, man. You're going to love this stuff. Open up. Let me shove you a mouthful of it in there. You know, so you need to do that. No, I'm telling you, you know, give a little, hey, if he got, pay honor to whom honor is due. So give him some honor on your show or something, you know, posthumously, you know, you can acknowledge that. And it's not going to hurt you, but, you know, pick up some episodes or just talk to Lori and say, hey, I want to run some stuff, and want people to know, hey, go check out Brian Barczyk, man. There's just thousands of hours of opportunity to be entertained, to be educated and stuff. I mean, Brian was, dude, he was one of the best. He really was.
You know, a lot of people don't realize that Brian was a great reptile breeder too. That he was that first, because when we first started doing this, I met Brian in Orlando at the Breeders' Expo, and Brian and I are the same exact age. Same with Craig Graziani. We're all the same exact age. If we grew up in the same neighborhood, we would have been in the same school with each other in the same classes. And you know, Mark Bell's a couple of years older than us. We were the young guys back then. You know, we were the young guys trying to breed snakes, and Brian was really good at breeding snakes when we were young. So, I mean, I remember he did an article in that, it was a magazine called Captive Breeding. And he did an article about breeding carpet pythons, jungle carpets. And this is a long time ago. You're talking like early 90s. So I think the thing that people don't know about Brian is that he was a great reptile breeder, you know, one of the pioneers. And, you know, he took a different path, which was pretty smart considering, you know, how far he took that YouTube channel. But I think people should know that part of Brian, which they really don't know from his YouTube channel, you know?
Yeah, no, that's, you know, again, he got into the Burmese pythons early, albino Burmese. He always talked about that, how that really shot him off in the hobby.
Right.
And like you said, you know, there's different chapters to Barczyk's life in the hobby. And to be honest with you, the Reptarian being the final chapter, in my opinion, is probably the best way for it to be carried on. You know, carrying on a collection of breeding reptiles is not really something that like the public can really be interested in. But having this thing that he built that people were used to, I mean, it's there and it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, Dave, before I continue, do you have a topic you want to touch on? I don't want to hog them all.
Well, you know, I just kind of ease in as we go. You know, this kind of, it's going to be a completely different direction, but you know, Eugene, you were talking about your facility that was 3,000 square feet. And then I'm sure you moved into a bigger one. And then was it a bigger one, or how did that growth go over the years? And I want to hear the same thing from Vin.
Well, God, man, I'm trying to think. So we bought our land in 82. We started construction October the 17th, 1988. We moved in March 11th, 1989. The first building was 3,800 square foot. Of that 3,800 square foot, 2,200 was two big rooms, two separate areas for reptiles. They had their own heating and cooling system. And then the middle part of the L shell building is where I lived. In other words, I lived in my snake house. Sometimes I think it's one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. But you know, we got married, we had kids, and they some way somehow evolved from the madness. Then we built other buildings on the farm, and then we have a lot of smaller buildings that we've been able to incorporate. A lot of metal buildings that we put closed cell foam into, and built environmental systems, and using the mini splits, you know, for the clouvers. And the beauty of the clouvers is that, you know, every 2 months we've got a colony either coming up or going down. So with 6 colonies, the goal, Dave, is to always have eggs. And so we have 12 species of clouvers, and then every species has God knows how many morphs. And all of those species and all of those morphs are well represented in each building. I think there's like 500 something females in each building. And everything's freedom breeder, you know, 1040 trays, gives animals plenty of room. And they get by fine here in Florida with the ambient temperature. You know, we probably don't get any less or more slugs than anybody else. It's just the nature of colubrids. But we've come up with a way that works. So I didn't try to get bigger. I was just trying to get better. And in the process, we had to build a few buildings. And we've used a lot of those buildings for the rodents, in other words, to spread the risk. There's advantage to having smaller separate buildings. I mean, I look at what Mark and Kim did down there in Naples. I don't know how many buildings they have, probably 100 and something or more. I mean, they've got a lot of colonies, a lot of buildings, and it works, you know, to spread the risk. To try to build one big building where everything is under one roof, it's just counterproductive because you don't have the flexibility of temperature control or humidity control or photo period. And so there's advantages depending on what species you're working with. You know, if I had the MJ's money, then I could build a big building and have separate rooms inside of it. But right now we don't. So
you saying I have money because I live in California? I'm confused.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
You told everyone you were a baller a minute ago, so I think he's just living in that moment.
I was baller.
But
I
you know,
invoice would be pretty cheap.
Yeah, the size, you know, like I said, what I built out here was for berms. In other words, 8-foot cages with skylights and the whole 9 yards, natural photo period, and vertical windows. I mean, this place was built around the backbones of Burmese pythons, and all that has changed and gone away. But yet, luckily, the footprint fit. And you know, Bill Brent was my contractor at the time, and I was the foreman. And I remember Bill, when I was getting ready to design this place, he said, "Man, just keep things simple, you know, and 8/8/16 concrete block or 4x8 sheet of plywood. In other words, keep your measurements and your growth and your flexibility into a simple design that you could improve or increase." And, you know, we've got some plans in the future, and God gave me a vision on some buildings and other things, but everything in the natural says that ain't going to happen. Well, I don't care what everybody else says. I've got a vision. And if I get the opportunity to build a boat in the desert, I'm going to go build a boat in the desert, and I'll let somebody else put the water in there to float it out. I'm excited about the future. I mean, I've got 30 good years of building and creating and loving and forgiving and talking to all you crazy guys. And you know, I'm excited about tomorrow. So what we built here worked for our environment, worked for the, when I say environment, you know, North Central Florida. I mean, it gets cold here. We get single digit weathers. I mean, I've seen ice storms, you know, I've seen 4 or 5 days of ice storms when it didn't get above 10 degrees. It's rare, but it happens.
Wow.
You know, that sort of stuff. And yeah, so we had to build, Dave, for the worst case scenario. God forbid, you know, should it happen. So it's been costly. If it can happen, it probably will happen. But when you come to visit, you'll see the simplicity. You'll see the simplicity, and then you'll see how duplicatable it is, and it works. And I mean, when I tell people it's easier to manage 10,000 snakes, and we have more than that, but it's the honest to God's truth. I mean, it's volume, and it's a different challenge, and it's a different discipline to, you know, like what Vin said. It's just, I mean, you can manage, you know, a checking account, or you can manage a bank. What would you rather own, a checking account or a bank full of checking accounts? I'd rather own the bank full of checking accounts. And when you get to that size, then you got to hire people, but then you got to trust people, and then you got to build relationships. So for me, what has excited me is not the latest, greatest thing in terms of an animal. It's building the business, build a business that agriculture has never seen before. And on my business card, and I've had it for years and years and years, and you know, especially showing it to politicians and regulators and stuff like this, it said the future of Florida's agriculture, reptile farming. You know, and people look at me, and I said, trust me, we're here. You can't see me because you're too busy. And it's true what's going on, what's taking place. I mean, listen, the soccer moms, the public demands that they want captive, bred, and born animals. They want to know where their animals came from. Like I said in the first broadcast, the good news is there's no regulations. The bad news is there's no regulations.
Yeah.
And some way, somehow, we've got to protect all the hobbyists out there to get them under the umbrella of compliance, because they provide a tremendous service and they produce products that people would love to get. And the other big key thing is, of course, distribution. How do you distribute all these products? And that was the frustrating thing for me, Dave, is like, you know, God, I got tired. Cindy and I got tired of driving up and down I-75 and I-95. I said, this ain't being a road gypsy. No, that's not what I want to be. It was cool. It was fun. But after a while, it's like, damn, you know, this is a grind. And what it was really tough on, Dave, was the animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really tough on the animals.
Yeah, when I did a lot of shows, you know, there's certain species you can't do back-to-back weekends with. Like, I can't take boas to back-to-back weekends. Now, ball pythons are a little more bulletproof. You can feed them in between, but, like, a lot of species you just can't put that much time on the road.
Well, and I know people, especially with a lot of the chameleons and geckos and frogs and stuff, they'll have, you know, like Ringling Brothers. Ringling Brothers have the red show, the blue show, and the gold show. You know, in other words, to protect the animals and to protect the staff and the people. And I think you probably, if you do a lot of shows, you can't be bringing the same stock, because they're going to get wore out. You know, they need a break. I'm not against shows. I think shows are great. Lord knows I did them for years and years and helped to really, you know, grow the business. They are necessary, but they are changing, and they're you know, people like what Bob's doing and stuff like that, making the shows better. You know, is a good thing. So there's no right or wrong way or better way. It's just a question of what you want to do. I mean, I don't recommend to everybody to do what I do, because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of discipline.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Vin, I want to hear the same thing from you, but like one more comment. You know, you made a comment about reptiles being sold on Amazon. I thought about that for about 5 minutes afterwards, the pros and cons. And, you know, I talked to JT about Reptichip, and he had talked to me about distribution centers, and, you know, certain those were costing too much money to get to certain regions. You know, for the Amazon, like, you could be an Amazon guy, but like same deal, like having a contract with Petco or PetSmart, you know, there's an expectation for you to have a certain amount of animals. And I don't think Amazon would just be like a free for all for breeders unless they were somebody at your scale.
I think you're right. I mean, I watched what Bill Brandt did back in the early 90s when he got in bed with Petco and how hard he worked. And, you know, I mean, they learned some things and Bill learned some things, but it's not the same business model. It's radically changed, even though Bill is, you know, back in the business and trying to, you know, salvage what's left of what he had. You know, and that's tough. But Petco and PetSmart and PSP and Tractor Supply and all the rest of them, they're not the same. And I think Chewy would probably sell live animals before Amazon would, because Chewy has a much better relationship with the pet trade than Amazon does. And I don't think Amazon is that smart or is that good. I think you'll see fish will probably be done before mammals will, or reptiles. I mean, people get upset about reptiles dying in traffic or in transportation in mammals. They don't get quite as upset, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, about fish, because fish are in water and fish are in a plastic bag. And, you know, you can control the temperatures and do a lot of various things. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know. I mean, I don't, but I just feel like somebody is going to try it, because where they'll make their money is selling all the other ancillary products. And like I said, I'm not an advocate of doing that, but man, I've seen so many changes. So nothing would surprise me if Amazon or Chewy, and Chewy's got 13 huge distribution centers in the United States. One of them's 30 miles down the road from me. They got what, 1.5 million square foot.
Jesus.
You know? Yeah. Well, right next to them is AutoZone, and right next to them is FedEx, and then, God, who else is down there next to them? You got Chewy, AutoZone, FedEx, somebody else. I don't know. I mean, these warehouses are all 1 million square foot. Talk about going big or go home. Please. Put it this way: there's so much traffic on I-75, Dave. They're going to build their own ingress and egress. You know, the exit. Yeah, they're making the exits better because of the traffic. Because the semis are just like ducks. You know, and Florida's just growing. Well, yeah, Florida's been sold. No, it has. It's sold. So I don't know. I don't want to
Still
sell
a lot of
Chewy.
No, there's still a lot of barren land in Florida, like undeveloped, more in the center of the state. You know, it's not like everything's on top of each other, you know, unless you're running down the coast.
Whatever. I'm just, like I said, you know, it's your Florida, Dave. Come on down here and get you some.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to live in Florida, buddy. I like visiting. I couldn't do it.
Maybe
Smart man.
Maybe you could show Eugene some things about the freeway down when we go visit him or something, Dave. I don't know.
Well, I'll be the one driving slow in the slow lane, like always. Chad will tell you all about that.
Well, you want to hear what Vin has to say, though?
Yeah, of course. I'd like to hear about your growth along the years and why you got to the point you did, and you knew when to stop is a good point.
Well, I basically started, like everybody else, breeding them out of my house in my basement, which for me worked great. I mean, a basement is a really well-insulated place to breed snakes. So, but it got to the point where it was getting too big, and you know, I went and visited Eugene, and he was like, "You got to get out of there." I ended up renting a pretty big warehouse back in the early 2000s. It was the first one was 1,500 square feet, which was pretty big considering I had my stuff in my basement, which was maybe 800 square feet.
Yeah.
And from there, in the same complex, a space opened up that was 2,800 square feet, so it was double. And I took that for a number of years. That worked out well because I was doing a lot of ball pythons back then, and a lot of boas. That was like 2012 to like 2018. And that place ended up getting sold. So I had to move again. And what I did was I scaled down at that point a little bit. I scaled down to like 1,500 square feet. And I did less ball pythons from that point on, and more boas. And I'm pretty much at that point now. My next point, I don't know, maybe my wife and I will move out of the state eventually, and we'll get a place that has a barn on it or something, but I'll never stop doing this. For me, the bigger space was good and it was bad. It was good that I had more space to breed more reptiles and make more money, but it was bad because I had a lot more overhead. You know, so
More money, more problems.
yeah, and I like bringing it down to the point where it's a little easier and more manageable. Because the older I get, the less work I really want to do. So, but you know, Eugene and I talked about this many times, and I think I may even talked about it with you guys. You know, Eugene paid me a compliment many years ago saying, I have yet to meet the next Vin Russo. And that was about 10, 15 years ago.
Wow.
Meaning Eugene met me when I was pretty young and I was breeding reptiles and wanting to do it full time. And, you know, the guys behind us are, you know, like Dave, you're next in line. So Mike, you're next in line.
Oh,
but you know, like Eugene said before, who's it going to be? Is it going to be a girl, a millennial who's saying, oh, I'm going to take this to the next level. I'm going to breed whatever it may be, bearded dragons, crested geckos, ball pythons, maybe boas. I don't know. Oddly enough, I look at my sales the last, I'd say, 7 years, 7 years. A lot of my, I would say 60, 70% of my sales, retail sales, are to millennial women, especially boas. So there's a lot of women getting into this, and it would be a good opportunity for somebody to be the next, you know, larger commercial scale breeder. But I really don't, I have yet to meet the next Eugene Bessette. I don't know anybody who's going to take it to the level he did. I don't know the 28-year-old guy that's going to be the next Eugene. I don't know the next 28-year-old guy that's going to be the next Vin. Or
and isn't that because you guys come from such a different era? Like, I don't know. Like, I was talking to Mark Bailey. I talk to Mark Bailey about this all the time, Eugene, and like, he's one of the few guys that is still relevant in the ball python game who doesn't have social media. Could give two shits about, you know, going on any podcast to advertise anything, and he does just fine. And that's kind of what you've been doing, Eugene. Like, you're not, I mean, people are so thirsty for an episode from you because you don't do these. You never put yourself out there, because I feel like you're cut from that cloth that I feel like is a dying breed at this point. I don't know who else could pull off. I don't know who else could come into this game at this point and in 30 years do this without having to be so connected with social media and everything that's happening today, you know?
Well, I think, thank you for the compliment, but, you know, I'm not the only one. I mean, you know, John Mack's got a huge operation. Chun Koo had a large operation down in Miami. I'm not sure what Chun is doing. I don't know of anybody on the West Coast that's a large ball python or large breeder of snakes. There's some people up in Washington that are huge with distribution centers and dealing with a lot of arachnids and insects and a lot of chameleons. You know, they make use of their weather, and they're smart for doing that. No one person needs to or can master it all. It's all about having a relationship. And, you know, if you need snakes, who do you talk to? If you need arachnids, who do you talk to? If you need tortoises, who do you talk to? You know, that sort of stuff. So I think what you have to do is you've got to specialize. Numbers are infinite left to right, but they're also infinite when you look between your toes. And that was one of the things that Dr. Van Meyer, my mentor that I alluded to earlier, taught me, that less is more, boring is beautiful. And one of the things that, and I needed to throw this out there because I was listening to what Bob was saying, and I'm not saying that Bob's advice didn't have merit, because it did. But one thing I tell people, if they're going to do this business, the first thing they need to do is learn how to raise rodents.
Yeah.
And when I started my snake business when I was 9 years old, and the way I started my snake business was raising mice. And I raised so many of these black lab mice. And the guy that I got them from the university, well, you can't turn them loose because they'll screw up all the wild mice. So I told my parents, you got to let me keep snakes. You got to let me keep snakes. And that's how I did it. I blackmailed my parents to let me have snakes because I had so many mice pissing and trash in the garage. You know, it smelled, well, you know what mice smell like.
Yeah.
Anyways, so, you know, I was a flesh peddler at the age of 9. And then the rest is history. Catching animals, taking them to Tarpon Springs Zoo, and one thing grew, and then military, Vietnam, came back, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
On and on and on. But I started raising rodents. And you look at people today, and they're being held captive by rats from China, or mice from China, or, you know, I mean, you're either going to get them from Brian Hahn, you're going to get them from Kevin Bryant, unless you have contacts with some local producers in some of these larger metropolitan areas. There are people that are producing rodents, and rightfully so. I mean, the money's in the food, the money's in the crickets, the money's in the mealworms, built-in obsolescence. Got to have it, got to have it. And for me, what's enabled me to MJ to survive and you come down here is that we produce 5,000 to 6,000 rats every week of different sizes, and a third of our business is the rodent operation. 1/3 is colubers, 1/3 is ball pythons, and then the Colombian boas, and the other third is the rodent operation. It's a three-legged stool. And I can tell you right now, the rat house crew, 1 guy and 3 women, and they kick ass, and we've got great systems, and they work 7 days a week, and they've got systems in place, you know, and we cannot make enough rats. I still buy frozen rats from somebody here in Florida. I buy frozen mice from a few different people, and I buy live mice from whoever I can get them. I never have enough rodents. I never have enough mice, you know, that sort of stuff. And so if you're going to start this business, if you're going to start this hobby, you better figure out, where does the food come from? An army can't crawl if it doesn't have gas and food. So if your dream is an army and you have an army-sized dream, you better know how to feed it, and you better know how to mobilize it. And that's one mistake. I mean, I've seen so many people go bankrupt because, well, I couldn't breed. I couldn't get crickets. I couldn't get mealworms. I couldn't get mice. I couldn't get rats. I couldn't get rabbits. On and on and on. Well, you know what, dumbass? You know, it's your fault. I got no sympathy for you.
Yeah.
God almighty, they want 30 cents for a pinky mouse or something like that, or 40 cents. Jesus, I mean, that's like $75, $80 a pound. It's more than Kobe beef. Well, it's your fault. You know, think about it. And so, how do you build a successful reptile business? Learn how to feed it.
Yeah.
Don't be a slave to somebody else.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you don't want to be a drug addict. You don't want to be a food addict. And
yeah,
seriously.
Just to touch on that, you know, Eugene, and just I feel like a lot of the people I'm hearing that are not able to fulfill this whole dream of being ball python breeders, or they're having to sell their collection because their rodent connection is consistent, and they can, not only if it's not consistent, they can't afford it at this point, because how much it's all, like, all the prices have jacked up over here in Cali, at least from what I know. I don't know everywhere else in the country, but I do know that, like, rodents are definitely high right now if you don't produce your own rodents, no matter if it's wholesale or from the pet shop.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, you know, I tell people, if you want to build a reptile business, first thing you do is buy ag land, and then start figuring out how to raise food.
Yeah.
And then after you've got rats and mice coming out your butt, go buy a snake.
Yeah.
But buy dirt and get a rodent farm going, and then go get you a lizard, or go get your frog, or go get you a snake.
Yeah.
I got good at breeding rodents because that was the only way I can get them way back when. I mean, like Eugene, I couldn't go buy mice and rats back then. Nobody really was selling volume mice and rats, so I had to make my own.
Yeah, and you know, and I became a victim of my own success. There's nobody in the state of Florida that can sell me 6,000 or 5,000 rats every week of the right size.
Right.
You know, I mean, the rat house has a commissary, because the ball python girls and the coluber girls, you know, they have a sheet that they fill out, and certain days of the week they need this size. They need either chubs or crawlers or pinks or something like that. No. You know, and it's consistent. And I mean, I don't have the capital right now, but I probably ought to build 1 or 2 more rat houses. If I put any money into capital growth here, it will be for the rodents. I will never have enough rats. You know,
well, like you said, you have the exact size you need. Like I'm like you. I buy adult rats and I buy adult mice, but I have every size up till that I make myself. If I didn't have those, I'd be in trouble.
I mean, I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but I can't tell you. I mean, MJ, you brought it up. I'm sure Dave's heard it, and I know Vin's heard it. You know, where people have had to sell a $100,000 collection for nothing because they couldn't feed it.
Yeah.
Or they couldn't breed it and get their money back. I mean, let's face it. You know, these animals don't need a lot of food, but people don't realize that is a real cost. And then the availability, and then distribution. I mean, I know people that spend more money on freight trying to get frozen rodents than they do the cost of the rodents.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. No, I remember Ralph Davis videos back in the day. He showed his rat operation. You know, when Justin Glebeca made his big upgrade on his facility, a section of that building was just for breeding rats. You know, you can only depend on so many people, and rodent people, not to be rude, very undependable. It's not something people want to do forever. So, you know, even like, you know, when I came out to work with Ben stuff, you know, luckily I had one of his contacts, but, you know, I was going in the basement. I was looking for old shipping boxes, seeing who he was even getting some frozen thawed from, just trying to put it all together. And I think over the course of just 2 years on his property, I think I went through like 7 different rodent breeders because they were either flaking out, prices got bumped up a little too high, things changed on their ends. But yeah, the rodent thing, I mean, fortunately right now, you know, I got my rodent house all set up. It's a bit jam-packed though. It's a little shameful how many fucking rats I got in there, but I'm going to keep my collection to where it needs to be, that building can always feed it. And I will try not to exceed that amount of animals.
And you're a wise man, Dave, and everybody else should follow your lead on this. You know, it's just get your priorities straight, and people don't. You know, they just they set themselves up for immediate failure, and it's not necessarily for everybody. You know, you can't raise enough rodents living in suburbia without getting in trouble. You're either going to violate some homeowners organization, you're going to get some animal rights person breathing down your neck. I mean, you're going to piss somebody off. There's no two ways about it. And that's why I tell people, I mean, if you're burned, if your dream is to do this business, great, buy dirt or go someplace where you can get dirt, you know, and then start raising rodents, and then get a building with freezers. And, you know, I mean, I just, I'm telling you, these people that work for me, they don't understand. All I do is monitor what's being fed, what's being cleaned, what's being watered. And somebody said, well, what do you do for a living? I tell them I write checks. That's my job. I just write checks all day long, just write checks. That's all you do when you get to this point right here. But and if you don't write it down, and if you don't monitor it, I mean, I'm anxious for Dave and you, MJ, to come here and visit when you see the data system that we have in the rodent house and how that they're able to track. You know, we know how many rodents we produce. You know, we know how many thousands of females are in production. I get a report every week, and we look at these hard numbers. Yeah, how many litters? How many died? How many how many rats did the rat house sell to the snake business? You know, like OS rat house sell to OS snakes. You know, that kind of stuff. And the rat house, they always trump. They're first in the child line. They're first in the acquisition line. You know, Anthony tells me we need this. Hey, Hefe, we need this. It's like, fine. What do we need? Got it. You know, go find it, make it show up. You know, and don't give me any excuses. You know, gotta have it. And I'm telling you, the money's in the rodents, and you cannot make enough rodents. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, listen. Go ahead, Eugene. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, you're good.
No, you go.
Oh, sorry.
I think he was going to say goodbye. So, Eugene, if you have something to say, I think you might want to get it in.
Why? Are we running out of time?
No, I mean, we're at 2 hours, and I just want to make sure you're good, Eugene. I think are you good if we continue?
Hey, dude, I got nowhere to be until 5 o'clock tomorrow morning.
All right, you told me it's usually late around this time, you know, and I want to make sure I'm not crashing your sleep.
Kiss my butt. I'll go get my bottle of tequila. We'll be fine.
You're good. No, I want to know exactly throughout your years of experience of hiring people, like what makes you feel good about a new employee? Like, meaning, because I feel like turnover is a thing that you have to get comfortable with, and it is what it is. Some people just aren't cut out to do rat chores or whatever you're hiring for. But how do you either train somebody the right way in something like this, Eugene, or what do you look for in somebody you want to hire on and trust? I feel like that's one thing I really need help with.
That's a really good question, and I'm still trying to figure it out because, you know, the 18 to 28-year-old world has radically changed. I mean, there was a time when I would trust 18-year-olds with, you know, venomous snakes, and today I hardly trust them sometimes with ball pythons, much less something venomous. There's been such a change in the mental attitude of society. But what I look for, I mean, we run an ad on Indeed, and what I look for is a simple resume. I'm looking for somebody, and you know, who we hire here, it really is mostly beginner jobs. we have a lot of full-time career people, and then we have a lot of part-time people. And we're about 70% full-time, and the other 30% is part-time, which is mostly students, which I enjoy working. So you can plug them in. But looking for a career person, you know, is in terms of, it's not what you pay them, it's how you pay them and how you treat them. But I look for somebody that's either been an FFA or 4-H or Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, band, something athletics, ROTC, any leadership thing, or somebody that's, if somebody's moved around and they're 26 years old and every 5 months they go to a different job, I don't even bother to interview them. You know, you look at that resume, and if the resume is more than a page, you don't want to waste your time. If they can't sell themselves, I mean, listen, if you're not over 40, there's no way you're going to have much to put on a resume that you can't put in one page, you know, that sort of stuff. So it's tough. It really is. And I've hired people that I thought, my God, this is the Michael Jordan, you know, franchise player. And 3 days later, oh, I'm tired of getting bit, or I don't like this, or it's too hot. And it's like, God, man, what it was. And then you'll hire somebody that, like, God, they don't look like they can cut it physically, and they just crush it. You know what I mean? That sort of stuff. So you have to be willing to take a lot of no's. You have to be willing to get your heart broken when it comes to hiring people. And I tell you, I mean, I've hired a lot of people in 45 years. A lot of it is just luck, but you know, you throw enough mud up on the wall, enough of it will stick. And I asked people, you know, I asked them key words. I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Why are you here? Why do you want to work here? Do you even know what we do? And they don't. And of course, everybody wants to make more money. It's like, well, I'll pay you more money, but you got to be able to do the job. Oh, can you come to work on time? Oh, can you bring a ballpoint pen? You know, and can you grind for 10, 11 hours? You know, and we don't have to give people breaks. We don't even have to give people lunch break in Florida. It's not required by law. We allow them. But most of the girls that work for me, they grind out 8, 9, 10, 11-hour days. They never take lunch. They hardly ever take a break. They just come in here and kick it. We start at 6 in the morning, and we're out of here by 5.
There's no lunch laws in Florida? There's no
you don't have to give anybody a break.
Oh wow, Cali's way different. Oh, I gotta
unless you got a union job in Florida, but this ain't union.
Right.
This is farm. This is agriculture. I'm zoned agriculture. I'm recognized by the state as a snake farm. I am ag. I'm bona fide ag. I mean, I provide microwaves and refrigerators, and I tell them, hey, keep hydrated, keep water with you all the time. And when you need to take a break, take a break. You don't have to punch out. If you need 10, 15 minutes, go sit at the picnic tables under the umbrella. You know, go eat something, drink something. I mean, it's like they're subcontractors. I just wind them up and turn them loose. But the mindset with these women that do things, I mean, these gals that work for me, man, they just get it done. They don't complain. They just get it done. It is amazing. And one time I used to have nothing but all females, but now we have a few guys, and the guys are good. I mean, Anthony out in the rat house has been with me 7, 8 years, and he's got 3 other gals, you know, and working with women, and these girls are good. They're all different shapes and sizes, but they know how to relate. And some people do better with snakes. Some people do better with rodents. So you just try, and you got to have a system in place. So I don't train them, but the ones that do, the managers do the training, and I'll go through all the resumes, and I'll run an ad for like 2 or 3 days and get 100 resumes, and then I go through all the resumes and I pick which ones I want to set up for an interview, and then I think this person would be good for this person would be good for that. So and I let the 3 managers, and we go through. The rat house is pretty stable, but the ball pythons and the colubrids, we have greater turnover in that. The colubrid operation is tough. I mean, there's a lot of guys that think they can handle colubrids, but the colubrids whip their butt because they're so fast and everything else. Ball pythons, I mean, let's face it, you can open up the tray and the damn snake might move by the end of the day. I mean, ball pythons are good for people that aren't fast.
Yeah.
Colubrids, I mean, all those Pueblos, Hondurans, Sinaloans, milk snakes, king snakes, corns, I mean,
they move.
You know, I mean, it's almost like doing venomous. If you take your eye off the snake, you have an empty cage.
Yep. That's crazy.
You do.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, it's a question of, I mean, where I live, there's a big university here, University of Florida and Santa Fe College. So there's 90,000 college students. Okay. So there is a labor market there, but you've got to train them. And I love it. It's exhausting at times. You know, you get your heart broken, and somebody will. I mean, sometimes people just send you a text and say, "I quit," or they don't show up. Where we've had people leave their jacket here. You know, like they went to lunch and never came back. Like, damn, who pissed him off or who pissed her off?
And then Dave takes a jacket home. That's something that Dave would just put in his collection for sure.
And her lunch.
And her lunch. Yeah, whatever. You know, yeah. I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's always a challenge keeping this place staffed. It always has been, always will be. And, you know, interviewing people is an art. You want to spend a little bit of time, but you ask key questions. I mean, I ask people, you know, I tell them I want to, you know, I want your heart. I want to hire your heart, and I want your butt to show up with your heart. But I really want somebody's passion. I want somebody's heart. And that resonates more with females than it does with males. So it's tough. It really is. This job is not for everybody. It's physically demanding. It's not like you're out there putting shingles on a roof or you're digging footers or you're milking cows. I mean, it's a lot of wax on, wax off, a lot of feeding, a lot of cleaning. It's production work. It's repetitious. It's not for everybody. And, you know, I spent my time at the post office decades ago, and you talk about a place where you don't want to work that was boring as hell. My God, is the post office. I mean, it's just teaches you. Yeah, it taught me how not to run a business. I mean, I learned a lot from the fallacies and the bureaucracy in the post office system, and also the way that they treated people, you know, terribly. So I think it's knowing how to love on people, how to make them feel appreciated, listening to people, letting them know that you care, letting them know that they're going to be safe. I always tell them, male or female, yeah, you can invite your parents or your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, grandma, grandpa, come on out to the snake farm. You know, this is different and stuff like that. And some people show up and others don't. So, you know, we've done incredibly well. We don't go through that many people over the course of a year because it's a college town. So there's a big turnover in August, and then there's always some in May or June. It's just the nature. But trying to find career people, get them trained so that you can pay them. So I have to compete with the state, you know, and I want people to make more money. I want somebody that wants to make more money.
Nice. Go ahead, Dave. What are you saying?
Well, just you know, your comment about hiring women. You know, I find that women are meticulous and they're caring. And when you talk about working with live animals, those are two very good things. And you know, MJ, you know, you asking Eugene about, you know, how do you do this? How do you scale, or like how do you get employees? Like, you know, I think about Vin, and you know, something I asked Vin last time was, do you have employees or are they all apprentices? And he said they're all my apprentices. So I think, you know, when it comes from a management standpoint, you know, Eugene's very meticulous. Like you said, he wants reports every week, things like that, where, you know, I'm sure when it comes to Vin, you know, you guys are chatting a little more. It might be a little bit different relationship, but it's also a little more one-on-one. So, you know, managing people or working around people, you know, everyone has their own like chemistry, but you know, Eugene is built to be a manager, and he's built to be a manager with multiple people.
Yeah, there's levels to it.
You
know,
well, Eugene's place is much larger than mine. So.
Go ahead, Vin.
No shame, Vin. No shame, Vin. You're just big enough.
No shame.
Yeah, I mean, volume size is everything, right? And Vin, you're just on the different size level when it comes to all this, right?
Yeah, I mean, Eugene has to be the way he is because he's got a lot of people working there, you know. So,
yeah. And I didn't mean that in a negative by any means.
No.
No, it's you know, there's a part of me right now I feel like we have too many people. We're trying to find the right people and finding the consistency. The other thing too that I'll share with you, Ben, and I know you're going to get by here sooner than later, but we've gotten to the point, MJ, where as we grew and we got to a certain size, that I realized we've got to get a little bit bigger so that we have people working 7 days a week, like a dairy, instead of 5.5 days. So the rat house now has been 7 days a week for a couple of years. Colubrids is 6 days a week. Ball python is 6 days a week. We need to make it 7 days a week, but I've got to find the right people and then work somebody Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then work somebody else Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's the best thing from a security point of view where you have people that you can trust to come in here and open the farm and go to work. and really what we want to get done on the weekends is to do more cleaning so that during the week when we're feeding and breeding, we don't have to worry about cleaning, and breaking it up and something along those lines. And the rat house people, they need a break where the commissary isn't having to fill orders. And I can tell you, I mean, they stay on top of that out there, and the crew has got great charts. And I mean, yeah, they give me a report at the end of the week, but I turn them loose and let them come up with their own system so that they can monitor. I told them, this is the number we want to capture. We want to know how many are we producing, how many did we lose, how efficient are we, what's our cost effectiveness. And, we can raise a rat really big. I mean, cheap. I mean, I can take a weaned rat that's 40 grams, 45 grams, and by day 28, 29, he's close to 200 grams. And, it's just one bag of food that feeds 56 rats in 28 days. And then when you break it down, how much did that rat cost you? Not very much. And then boom, put them in the freezer. Boom, put them in the freezer. You know what I mean? So we can't make enough rats. Thank God for freezers, because there's no way you can have enough live rats of the right size, because I need about 2,000 mediums every week. No, you know how large your operation would have to be to have 2,000 rats that weigh 135 grams available every week to be gassed? You'd be producing 15,000 rats a week. Exponentially. You talk about numbers and what it means. I mean, it's exciting. The numbers are exciting. They really are. But so, I mean, what we do is not for what everybody else needs to be doing, and which is not a fair assessment. And if people out there are offended by this, I don't mean for them to be offended. It's just the direction that I decided to go in, because I got tired of doing shows, and I wasn't making enough money doing shows, and it was too stressful on me and my wife, and I was gone too damn much. And I don't want to be owned by the business, yet in some ways I am a prisoner of my own success. But that's the nature of doing something that's different. And you watch other people that have livestock businesses, and you have to have it to a certain size. You got to have that critical mass. It takes a certain amount of energy to get a boat up on a plane, but once you get that boat up on a plane, you can throttle back and that boat sails or navigates really, really almost effortlessly. And that's where we're at. In other words, for me, for my business model, 7 days a week, we start at 6 in the morning, we're done by 5. We have different people come in at different hours, either because they travel or they have kids or they have family. I mean, you work around them. I mean, I have several single moms, and I have a soft spot for single moms and for single kids, and they go through hell. And I know what it's like, because they had other jobs, but they got treated like crap because people look down on them for having kids. And I like the single moms, because those are lionesses. They fight. They're fighting for their kids, and they're fighting for their job. And I have got to, and I will support those people. And if somebody thinks I'm being prejudiced, it's like, yeah, I'm being prejudiced. I'm looking out for kids. I'm looking out for the mom that's looking out for the kids. Yeah. I just don't put up with it. And yet, sometimes people abuse it. So these are things that a lot of people right now aren't thinking about, because it's really a huge hobby/industry, or it's an industry that's driven by hobbyists. I don't know if they intend to make a profit, but they're having the time of their life, and they're having fun and eating and drinking with friends, and they're building relationships. My gosh, what's that worth? It's priceless for these people that are doing these shows, and I think it's great. I mean, it beats the hell out of watching TV all the time and stuff like that. So they're getting out and doing stuff, meeting people, promoting the industry, and things like what the promoters are doing, and especially Bob taking it to a little bit higher level, is fine. I'm not saying that everybody else has to do that, but I like the fact, MJ, that somebody is willing to break the mold.
Yeah, well, somebody has to.
Damn right. Overdue. Should have been done.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, no, definitely. Oh, go ahead. We're done.
No, you're good. No, say it, Dave.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I praise you for the size you got your company, and the fact that you've maintained it over the years, and the fact that you've given people around you opportunities. I'm sure there's people that have cycled through that have probably even gone on to start their own little businesses. And, my last employee was a lady named Pam, and she was kind of afraid of the snakes. So she was like a 3-foot snake hook to clean a ball python. And it wasn't the most efficient, but, she had people at home she needed to help. Job helped her, paid the bills. She was able to get a house. And, I was happy I was able to make that happen.
Right.
I will say, it's not that I'm a bad manager, because I've managed people in the past, but you know, with animals, you know, you get used to doing it yourself, and if you don't, it's hard to let other people do the work for you sometimes. And you know, even me scaling down to where I'm at right now, I feel more comfortable now doing it all myself, and maybe having a little less time than having people around me helping as an employees.
That is hard, Dave. My heart goes out to you because I went through that same problem because nobody's as good as me, but I needed to get things done. And you know, I mean, you know, Mark and Kim down there at Reptile Industries in Naples, I mean, they got over 100-something employees. John Mack in his business up there in Xena, he's got a huge business. I'm sure he's over 100 employees. I just have 20-something, but I just do snakes. Those guys are doing everything. They're doing, you know, the things with feet, and the things that crawl, and blah, 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 blah. And it's a huge discipline. So as my business name implies, Ophiological Services, we're in the snake service business of trying to put the right snake with the right person for a profitable amount of money. I mean, it's a business. We're here to provide a service. And I want to be here today, tomorrow, and the next day. So there's big businesses out there, and there's other people besides Mark and Kim and John and things of this nature. I mean, you know, Will Banks has got a large operation. Bob Clark's got a large operation. There's some guys that import and export, and they breed, and they play around with a lot of different stuff. And I'm not sure what's out there in California, but I really think the larger breeders are, you know, somewhere's up and down the Mississippi River or in the southeast United States. I may be wrong based on what I know because of relationships. That's how I see it. So, and if you guys know differently, please educate me.
I can't think of a large operation on the West Coast.
Me neither.
And I've been thinking about it the whole time.
Yeah. Well, listen. Why don't you take us home here, Dave? You have a wrap up topic for Vin and Eugene, and then Vin, if you have a question for Eugene, I don't mind. You know, I would like to hear something that I might have for Eugene. But I'll let you think of it while Dave takes us home here. Dave, what's the wrap up topic or question you might have?
Well, my last one's usually my first one. What was your first snake, Eugene? Like, what got you going in the hobby? You knew you had to have it.
First snake I saw was a black snake chasing in a knoll. The first snake that I caught, I think it was a big yellow rat snake. It was trying to eat a rabbit. I mean, this thing was huge. I've never seen a yellow rat snake so big, and that thing just enamored me. And yellow rats, corn snakes, and then where I grew up here in the Gainesville, Alachua County, big on water snakes. So I can't remember I know the first snake I saw, and then the rest was history. And then we started catching snakes. I don't know how I got hooked up with Tarpon Springs in the early 60s. Somebody told me about it. And then I started wheeling and dealing, you know, catching local animals and then selling them the snakes and then buying all this stuff from South America. It was coming out of Leticia, Colombia. Mike Salikas' place. I think he's passed away. I mean, he was a World War II veteran. But God, man, I tell you, I really think, Dave, it wasn't so much just the animal, but it was the people with the animal. And I don't know what came first, you know, the chicken or the egg. Was it the guy with the next snake, or was it the snake with the next guy? You know, I mean, that's a great question, and nobody's ever asked me that. So kudos to your brain tonight, my friend.
Appreciate you.
And are you running a kennel over there, Dave? Are you Jesus Christ, bro? I mean, all I hear is dogs and things falling over there, and it's
well, you're pointing out my poverty to everybody. You know, I live in like a one room now. I've made a lot of sacrifices, so I've got 3 dogs, a cat, and a box of chickens I put in the other room. Man, this is real life now. Remember, I gave you the little panorama when I was here last time, and I was like, "Here's everything I have."
I don't need to say it. Everybody hears it. What do you want me to do? Like, it's all
well,
out.
I've been muting a lot. You know,
It's not
I
working.
think that was a cat stomping through the house, man. I'm not sure.
Hey, Vin, what do you have? Maybe question for Eugene or anything? Anything you want to wrap up with?
Usually when I have a question for Eugene, I just call him up.
That's rare. That's rare.
Let's pretend it's a phone call. What question would you have for him?
Oh. How's it going?
You know, it's amazing how bad people are when you put them on the spot. Because, you know, even when I watched Justin Miguel, you were like, "Hey, Justin, what's your wrap-up question?" He's like, "I got nothing, man. I got nothing up there."
Yeah.
You know,
it's tough. It's tough.
I will say this, and Vin did call me one time and said, "How you doing?" And I said, "You really want to know?" He says, "Yeah." You know, he's got that Christopher Walken, like, "Yeah." I said, "I'll tell you how I'm doing. Cindy's in heaven and my ass is out here in Archer. That's how I'm doing, you know." And I just started laughing. So my wife's in a better place. I'm doing fine. I'm getting through it. It's tough. It sucks. But, it is, this thing is called life, and it's not fair. But, the relationships that we have, and I don't know who's listening out there tonight, and hopefully some people will be encouraged. Do not let anybody steal your dream. Do not let anybody say you can't do it. You can do anything that you want if you're willing to fail more than anybody else. And I think that's one of the things where I've had my ass knocked down so damn many times, and every time I got knocked down or run over, it just made me so much more invigorated and so more determined, yet to come under authority and not to be arrogantly cocky, but come under authority and just to not take no, for an answer. So much opportunity, so many things are made easier today than ever. Maybe in some ways, MJ, that might not be a good thing because people can acquire things too easily, but I don't know. I mean, these are different times. It's not up to me. I'm just honored that, I'm allowed to share some of my thoughts. I've got a lot of things going on in my mind right now, just thinking about stories and people, and always happy to share. It's just, I'll answer any question, and I've got no secrets, but the three of you are welcome to come to the forum, and anybody out there that's listening can get my number and call. Say, hey man, I heard you rapping away on Trap Talk, and I'm going to be coming to Florida, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to come by and visit. Call, make an appointment, set up a time. Don't just show up because I'll run your dead ass off. But call and make an appointment, and
okay. Eugene, ask Vin if we're invited to his place.
Vin, no, he won't let you. He won't let you. No, Ben's secret.
I know. I've asked him. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Eugene knows.
Steve Russos.
Yeah, Eugene knows.
Huh?
Well, there's one thing I gotta say though. Like I said earlier before, if somebody would have told me 35 years ago, hey Vin, one day you're gonna be able to make a living doing this, I would have told them they were nuts. And when I started thinking that I could do it, everybody did tell me I was nuts. But then I went and visited Eugene and saw it in person. And if it wasn't for seeing Eugene in his place and being friends with Eugene all this time, I never would have taken the step. So I thank you for that, Eugene. And I only hope that maybe one day I can pass that on to somebody else. But
here's the key thing. You took the step, not me.
No, I know. Yeah.
You took the step.
I still needed to see it being done,
Yeah. I can remember Ben I remember when I quit my job. I quit October the 26th, 1990, and I had been talking to Tracy Miller back in the spring and the summer. We were talking about, and all I was doing was raising berms and talking about how much I was paying in income tax to the government, and all this overtime and versus what I was taking home. And kudos to Tracy. She said, Jesus, she says, look at how much you're paying for taxes and everything else and what you're making. You can make that much money on your own. And I got to thinking, it's like, damn, she's right. So I quit on the backbone of, I was making $16.35 an hour, getting a nice paycheck every 2 weeks, letting the eagle crap in my back pocket. But I was a slave to that check. And I quit on the backbone of 22 berms. I had built this place out here. I mean, that we moved out of Gainesville. We built Bubba's Big Snake House. All the snakes fit in one room. Now it's just like buildings and rooms. And it's crazy how much it's grown. But I quit on the faith of 22 albino berms, and back then they were wholesaling for $1,200 a piece. And I had the venomous stuff. We were still doing messing with gaboons and rhinos and hybridizing some stuff, and we had a few colubrids. But I thought, you know what? If I can't make it, then I deserve to starve and die. And I quit. And that last week, man, I was so paranoid. And everybody at the post office, oh, you'll be back in 6 weeks. You'll be back in a month. Yeah, no. I said, no, well, if I come back, it ain't going to be, to go to work. And everybody was negative. And nobody else, why they were negative? Because they weren't following their heart. They weren't willing to step out in blind faith. And I said, if I'm going to die, I want to die doing what I'm doing. My parents freaked out. They couldn't believe that I quit a job. My mother especially. Oh my God, my mother just went ballistic. My dad, he really didn't give two hoots. But my mother, oh.
You told me that same story back in probably 2000, 2001, and the same exact thing happened to me. I was working in banking back then, and I was like, fuck this, I'm quitting my job. And seeing how much income tax is being taken out of my salary. And I said to my wife, I'm like, if I put just as much time into my snakes as I did that job, I could probably make the same money, you know? And then you told me that story that you had done, and I'm like, you know what? I'm doing it, man. I'm out. And I the same exact thing happened. Everybody I worked with was like, you're nuts. You know, what are you getting out of this? What are you crazy? My mother to this day doesn't understand what I do.
Well, and she was a banker too, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So here's the thing for Dave and MJ and everybody else that's listening. Have you met your best friend? And you won't know until you go to the next show. You won't know until you listen to the next podcast. You won't know until you answer the phone. Have you met your best friend? And I can tell you right now that the payoff is relationships. It's not money. I've gone through millions of dollars, and so has Vin. He's gone through millions of dollars. It doesn't matter. It's the relationships. It's the people.
Yeah.
And I've met so many people, some desirable, some undesirable.
Yeah.
But I'm a better person. I'm a blessed man. I mean, I have so much to be thankful for, you know, and my life isn't the same, but I'm still grateful for all the decades and all the years. I'm not done, fellas, building this business. I'm not done growing this industry. I'm not done living, loving, and walking in forgiveness. And I challenge everybody that's out there, get your head out of your ass, get a bigger vision, a bigger dream, and tell the enemy of your soul to go to hell and get out of your way. Do it respectfully, but go get it done. Go do it now, because you only live once. What would you do? Hey, MJ, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? What would you do, MJ? You don't need your wife. You just need you. MJ, you got exactly what you need. You got this podcast. You got the reptiles. You're growing a huge network. You got what you need. Let your wife do what she's doing. Bless her, honor her, and love her, and just say, yes, dear. You'll
Sounds
be
like
fine.
a plan. Yeah, it's what
It works.
It does work,
bro.
For sure. It's just science.
Hey, if you tell yourself you can do something, you'll do it. If you tell yourself you can't do something, you're not going to do it. That's simple.
Yeah. I mean, I got a boat to build in the desert. That's the vision I've been given by God, to go build this 10,000 square foot boat in the desert. I know people are probably wondering, what the hell is he talking about? The 60s were real good to me.
But, you know, here's another thing that, you know, it's unfortunate, but not everyone carries the same level of confidence of what they do, even though they're probably good at it. Some people lag even in that area. And I know one thing, the reason why I've taken things where I've taken with this network is because I just felt so confident with it. And I just feel like there's nobody doing what I'm doing to this level. You know what I mean? As far as my style, having people like Dave be a part of this, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm in a unique position, and it gives me a shit ton of confidence. So
I just had a crazy thought. Brian Barczyk is cheering you on from heaven. He's telling you, kick it, MJ. Go for it, son. Go for it.
Yeah.
He's rooting for you. I promise you, he is. He wants to see you excel. Get a dream so big it scares the hell out of you.
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to have Brian's number and call him if I had a question, and he was always there to answer my calls, and he would give me so much encouragement, you know. So I'm glad you said that, Eugene. I appreciate that.
Well, you know what? You owe it to him and everybody else, because there's somebody going to come along, male or female, that's going to take your place. His candle blew out, but you can keep his memory alive by doing what you're doing and take it to the next level. Give honor to whom honor is due.
Respect.
This is your wake up call, MJ.
Yeah, get your head out of your ass. Let's go. Dave, help him.
Oh, I'm always here to help.
You know I help that guy, right?
Hey, you need Dave on that wall.
If there was
wall?
Yeah, on the wall, you know.
If there was a Mount Rushmore of Trap Talk, Dave's face would be on that wall. It would be on that mountain for sure. On the far left, but it would be there.
As long as I'm there, buddy.
Hey,
somebody's got to be there.
Eugene, I appreciate your time. I really want to. Obviously, we need a part 3. I'm gonna get bugged about having you back on, so we'll give you time to decompress from this one. But you know, we'll have you back, and I definitely value your time tonight, Eugene. Thank you so much.
Hey, I am honored that you guys thought it worthy enough for some other people to hear what Ben and I had to say, and it was great having Dave on board. It was great catching up with Dave, and I'm just telling you, just, you know, come on by the farm. Same thing for people who are out there listening. You know, we'll find time. We'll make things happen. We've got to help one another. We got to help each other. None of us know all the answers, but all of us together can help figure out what we shouldn't do. And that's probably the most important thing, is for people to decide, what is it that I shouldn't do? Because all three of you have made decisions. You can do anything you want. All things are permissible, but not all things are beneficial. And then you have to decide what is beneficial to you as an individual. So that I love, that I honor, that I respect, and that I encourage everybody else out there to just go big or go home, bro. Just do it. Just get it done.
Full send.
You got it, bro. Love you.
Love you, man. Thank you so much, Eugene. Have a good night.
Yep.
All right, Vin. What a night, man. I appreciate you coming through, Vin. I mean, you're very loyal to Trap Talk, and we very appreciate it. You know, I listen to any episode you're on with Dave, and thanks for dealing with Dave as much as, you know, we all deal with him. But, you know, he's you know, I would deal with a lot of Dave. I love him. You know what I mean? He's fucking, what are you going to do? All his dogs or whatever, his chicks. Anyways. But yeah, Vin, enjoy your night. I appreciate it. And we'll see you next week, right? See you at Tinley?
Yeah. You
All
going?
Right. Oh, I'm there. Yeah.
Oh,
Wait,
right.
hold on. Wait, hold on. Is there any secret dinner going on that I'm not invited to, or can we talk about this? What's going on?
There's a secret dinner for sure.
Oh. I better get an email. All right. Listen, I'll talk to you soon, Vin. Thank you so much.
All right, man. Take it easy, guys.
Have a good night, Vin.
I'll see you
Later, buddy.
Take care.
Oof, good episode, man.
Great episode.
Good. And you know, you got saved because whoever else had dogs barking in the background really kept me from fucking chewing your ass out. Because I'm like, I can't fuck. There was also other dogs on their end, but dude, Dave, come on. The sneezing threw me off, which I get it. We all have to sneeze.
I muted it.
Then the chicks, and then does your dog have fleas? Why is it shaking so much? Like, what's the shaking for? Is it okay?
That's George. He's a coon dog. He's got big ears and a big ass. So when he shakes, you hear them both.
Oh my God, Dave! Like this, it's never a dull moment, and I feel like this is why I do love you. You're gonna be at Tinley next week?
Yeah, we've talked about it, man. Of course. Okay. Thought we're working together next Friday.
We are. Okay. I just wanted to make. I saw there was a confusion. You didn't think I was going. I told you I was going, and then I didn't know if you weren't going. So, anyways, all right, cool. So we'll be there. If Vin invites you to dinner, tell him to invite me. Thank you. And then I think that's all we got. I'm looking forward to next week. I think it's been 2 years since we've done a podcast in the lobby of Tinley. This is gonna be great. It's gonna be great. All right. You know, don't be surprised if I give you something and all confused. None of that shit. Just eat it. All right.
Oh, I always do. You give me something, goes right in my mouth. No questions asked.
Okay, listen, I know you're one thing I want to ask you before I let you go tonight, Dave. What is the deal with you pushing more of a social media presence after you get moved in? Because I know you still have custom scales on Instagram. Are you going to change that to something else? Like, what can the people look forward to social media wise from Dave Levison once you're there? Like, once your working out routine's good and everything's there, when can we see more of a social media presence from Dave?
I honestly will probably start posting. I'm telling you, man, Monday is this like day where everything just either falls into place or it doesn't. Like I said, I've got 5 more moving trucks in the next 2 days. I need to put stuff everywhere, but I have ideas. I tell you, I always have ideas, but no, I want to do more. I want to entertain more. There's a lot of people I still want to talk to, and honestly, waiting 2 weeks to have a conversation kind of kills me. So yeah, I think you're going to start seeing maybe too much out of me soon. And as for posting animals, man, I got good things coming. I'm excited about this year. I just got to stay afloat. Like I said, this change is either going to make or break.
Yeah. And listen, it's mainly because the animals I know you work with, and you're, one of the things that I feel like a lot of the newer people only know of you is just like your knowledge on a podcast. But man, I want people to see your work. I want people to see the fucking kind of heat that you have packing over there, and the level of breeder you are, which any kind of buddy who's been in the game long enough knows. But there are a lot of new people out there, you know what I'm saying, and they deserve to see some of that Dave Levison heat.
No, for sure. It's really funny for all the crazy posts I'll make. I get anxiety for posting too much. So the animal thing, I don't know what it is about it, because like I said, I show you my work, but I am going to put bigger effort. Like I said, it's been a weird couple years. Monday, fresh start.
All right. Can't wait. For now, follow Custom Scales on Instagram And of course, Dave Levison Reptile Podcast every other weekend or Friday. Next Friday, we'll be live at Tinley right there on Friday night. So if you're at Tinley at the bar, okay, you know where to find me and Dave. We'll be in the lobby. You can't miss us. But give it up. It's a wrap for Dave Levison, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dave. I'll see you next week, buddy. Appreciate you, okay?
Thank you. Talk to you, bud.
Later. Fucking epic podcast. I will say to capitalize on this amazing episode, one of the many things Eugene said tonight was, like the people, right? Like what we do as far as working with reptiles, keeping reptiles is obviously why we do it, right? We love the reptiles, but the people just make everything come full circle. Man, the people I just had on the screen right now, I got to say, they inspire me. Like I'm telling you, I mean, even though I'm going on 8 years of being in the reptile hobby, I still feel very new. I still feel like very green. I feel very like wet behind the ears. And I love being around people that are just full of knowledge and inspiration, who've been around doing this for, since before I was even born. Eugene said he's been doing this for 45 years. I was born in 85. Okay. Vin and Eugene met in 84. They met before I was even born. You know what I mean? So I'm very inspired by so many people in this hobby industry. I hope you guys, and I feel like I recommend anyone out there who's coming into this, find somebody who inspires you. And if you're lucky enough, have them mentor you and stay close to them, because this hobby, as beautiful as it is, it will change everything in your life, maturity wise, like relationship wise, everything whole together. I literally owe my whole life to this reptile hobby. And I want to say thank you to all the support out there, everyone who's been watching Trap Talk Reptile Network for the 5 going on years. And remember that I'm putting out a show every day of the week here on Trap Talk Reptile Network, Monday through Sunday. Okay. And you can listen to all these episodes on all the major audio platforms. So thank you again for all the love and support. Now, if you're looking for more exclusive content, if you want to get more behind the scenes or just kind of, see exactly what I have going on further than these episodes, then come join the Trap Talk Patreon family. You could do that by clicking the very first link in the description below. And as soon as you join the Trap Talk Patreon family, you connect to a Discord with over 200 amazing keepers, and there's an awesome Instagram group chat. And of course, I throw Trap Fest every year that all the Patreon members and sick ass breeders I bring on this show are invited to. So listen, I love what I do. You guys are beautiful, man. I really enjoyed this episode. Again, one last thing I do want to mention to you guys is I got a phone call from somebody in the UK who's a part of an organization, I guess you could say. It's called Responsible Reptile Keeping. I'm sure some of you guys already are aware of this, but I do want to share what's happening right now with Tony Wigley over at Responsible Reptile Keeping and what he has going on. They have started a survey that's actually worldwide now. Now, this survey is basically like a questionnaire for all of us keepers out there, which basically, and it's anonymous. You don't have to put your name as far as anything like that, but all this information that the survey is looking to gather is to be ammunition for USARK Florida. I mean, anybody battling legislation in their local area with the courts, they could use this survey information. So I do encourage anybody out there in the United States to check out Responsible Reptile Keeping super survey that's going on, and you have till, I believe, let me find out the I think the deadline's the first of the month. I'll get more information because I'm still going to be talking about this throughout the week, and also throughout the month I'm going to be talking about this because I feel like all this information could really help Phil Goss with USARK and USARK Florida. So we all got to do our part, right? So it's a free survey, of course, and you don't have to put your name down, but I really feel like this could help. So just first link in the description below. Make sure you click on the Responsible Reptile Keeping Super Survey and be a part of it, man. Because like I said, more information for us to battle these ridiculous legislations, the better. So again, thank you for all the love and support. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Tomorrow we have JMG Reptiles with this podcast. Thank God it's Colubrid Fridays. And then Saturday, of course, all Monitor Talk. So you guys have a good one. Let me know if you're going to Tinley. Okay, cannot wait for Tinley next week. It's going to be popping. All right, but listen, that's all we have tonight on Trap Talk with MJ, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Before I let you guys go, drop a like button, hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment in the comment section if you're looking for some free Morph Market merch. I'll pick a random comment to shoot over some free Morph Market merch. All right, have a good night, guys. I'm out. Cheers.